Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. I'm on the road this week, so hence the hotel behind me, not my normal office. But joining me this week is Tom. Hey, what's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
Hello, friends.
Good to see you, Tom. Yeah, people said, "What's Tom doing?" Because people had a guess that maybe I was the one who was making us late. But no, it was you. You
No,
were
it was me.
making tea for yourself
It's
because
it's
you're,
always me. It's
yeah,
always me.
it's always Tom. Yes. Because I treat this time very, very responsibly. Like, I plan days, travel, everything around that. Tom struggles to plan his 5 minutes before this show starts. So,
The question's always, what are we doing tonight?
right, exactly. Even though I've told you 7 times, probably provided an agenda, had a meeting notice out there for weeks that you could accept, all these things are true.
I mean, I accept them sometimes.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fine. It's all good. It's such as the nature of you are the rock I must eternally push up a hill. I accept this. That's the world I live in.
So is it like Vincivus?
Pretty much, yes, that's correct. That's exactly right. All right. So at any rate, let's start with some news. Not a lot of news this week, but there's a little news. So let's start there.
We have a scaly butt for our rumor engine.
We do. I can't look at it, obviously. I can't switch over to it, but if you want to bring it up, you can. But it's a scaly butt. I mean, that's what it is. It looks like a Lizardman, a Seraphon butt. Yes.
What do you think it is? I have a suspicion.
Okay. What's your suspicion? Because the easier answer is everybody was like, oh, it's the new Lizardmen we've been waiting for, or Seraphon, or whatever you want to say, right? Depending on how you know them.
Yes.
As I've said before, by the way, we should all go back to calling them Slon. Right? Like, that's what their name was until 4th edition. They were just Slon. That was the whole race.
Right.
So I think we should all just go back to that. Let's just call them all Slon. But anyways, continue. What do you think it is?
I think it's their endless spells.
You think they're like summoning a big lizard dude? Here, I'll lock on you so that way we can all see it.
Yeah. That, or I think it's the Shadespire Warband. It's one of the two.
So are you predicting that the Seraphon release doesn't actually have new models?
Correct. As much as we hate that, I think that is exactly what I'm predicting.
So they'll basically be like a Skaven type book where they still have a bunch of their old and out-of-date models, and that's just the way it is.
I mean, until we get like the Savage Slon, the Savage Seraphon, which are like the naturalized ones, the non-magical masters that are just like the lizards in spawning pools.
Well, a note on that. My prediction is when we get the new Seraphon book, and this was actually, I'm not like the one who thought about this originally. I'm absolutely stealing this from 2+ Tough, so straight up.
Yep.
He mentioned that like when you look in some of the books now, like Beasts of Chaos, there are different, like they have that wonderful page spread in BOC where they have like the explanations on the origins of Beastmen, and so they provide like 3 completely exclusive explanations.
Unrelated.
Yeah. They're like, any of them could be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they can't all be true. I would love to see a reinterpretation of Seraphon like that, because they are very enigmatic and mysterious, right?
Right.
So I think it'd be cool if you had an explanation where, just like we got in the original book, where they're, the Slaughter driving around Aztec spaceships and remembering their soldiers into existence, right? And then we had another one where they have secret spawning pools hidden somewhere deep within Gyran and Gur and stuff, where they breed their strange new creatures and then, use powerful magics to summon them to war or whatever, right? Like, it'd be neat if they just didn't answer the question. I like things like that a lot better than things that are answered. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. And what I was saying about that idea is that, like, I don't think they'll get new sculpts. But unless we get like an actual like reimagining of them. And the way that they do that is they take them out of the magical and they make them like a function of like natural beasts. The other half of this, the other way that we go, like if we're going into Crazy Town.
Sure, why not? I mean, this whole show is about Crazy Town. So our GHB 2019 predictions, it's just going to be Crazy Town top to bottom. So
Seraphon don't like maintain as a standalone. And I know you're going to hate this idea, but they get rolled up with elves, and they become the demons of Haish. Like so Haish ends up being like Seraphon world.
They'd have to gut the line.
Probably.
Like, because there's just like Seraphon is a lot like Skaven in another way, in that there's 8 million sculpts, right? Like there's so many units.
Yeah.
And they would just have to totally gut the line, which would make people angry. I think that's probably too far into Crazy Town. It's an interesting idea, but
because they're like celestial demons, and so the question then is like, do they move into a space where like they're what gets, you know, how like chaos summons, like Khorne summons, like Khorne demons. Like it makes me wonder if like they will move into this like summoning space for all armies or something weird. Like not all armies, but you know, like a handful of armies will utilize a Slann summoning mechanic or something.
Yeah, I mean that is super tinfoil hat. I love how insane that is. You're right, I do hate the idea, but I love that you're taking these big swings already. You're clearly in the spirit of the show today.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I don't know, like I think they have to do something weird. That's what I'm saying. Like I think they have to push outside the standard envelope if they update this book. Like more than just like phoning it in. Like, you know, they can phone it in, create some terrain, like a spawning pool, right? Because that's what gets created.
Yeah.
A spawning pool and some endless spells, a new cover, a new art cover, and then basically like everything maintains. Knights get brought up to par even better than they are. The 60 knight list that showed up at BOBO. No, like knights get brought up to par, you know, to make the getting started worth it. And yeah, like so that's what happens if they just like pinch hit it, right? They just phone it in. But if they actually want to do an update, they have to like shake things up significantly. That's what I would say.
I mean, here's what I'll say. Like, you know, I went back to our Gloomspite Gets prediction show, and I was like, I don't think it's going to be a big release. I think it'll be like, you know, a couple kits maybe at most. And we were way wrong. We were way wrong on that.
Yeah, all the squigs got updated.
Yeah, because they ended up getting a ton of updates. And then I had the same prediction for Skaven. I said, I don't think they're going to get any updates at all. I think it'll be like just Skaven, and that'll be the book. And that was what happened. So clearly, who knows? The safe bet is it's the Underworld's Warband, because it is probably a realistic bet that they would end up in season 3, right?
Yeah, and that's what I said. Like it could be Underworlds, it could be endless spells. You know, another interesting thing of like if you're going to update part of their line, maybe what gets updated are all of your sources. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, yes, they have a bunch of terrible old sculpts. Okay, like all the
because the skinks are fine.
I agree, skinks are fine, and have already been reboxed and everything.
Right, and so maybe Sauruses are the update. I don't know.
Well, the Kroiger or Kroxigor, or however you're supposed to say it, they're also pretty terrible. Like they're straight up wretched, as a matter of fact. I mean, I say all this having a Seraphon army from 4th and 5th edition. Like most of the Seraphon army I have comes out of the old Bretonia Lizardmen box set, and then I have a bunch of the old metal Slann and a bunch of the old metal Stegodons, you know. But I do, however, have Teeny Weenies Riders, which are the greatest. I do. I wish they'd remake Teeny Weenies Riders if they were going to remake something. I just thought the skinks on Cold One looked so much cooler than the Saurus on Cold Ones. Like Teeny Weenies boys were super sweet. But anyway.
Sorry, I was answering our comments where everybody was critical of my printer not going, and I'm like, it is going. It's building a huge base of terrain right there. Does everyone not see? See? It's printing.
There you go.
It's just quiet.
I mean, whatever, I'll remain consistent. 50-50 shot. You ain't getting new models. You're going to have all your old terrible sculpts. You're going to be dealing with old terrible Saurus.
Yeah, like, yes, that's the easy low-hanging fruit here. That's what happens.
Right. Yep.
I mean, they're dinosaurs. We knew we knew what this was. Like, they're not going anywhere.
Look, here's what I'll say. If they actually get updated rules and, like, Saurus aren't terrible and Saurus Temple Guard aren't terrible and Knights aren't terrible and stuff like that, if those actually have a purpose, then whatever. Who cares? You can put up with older sculpts. Like, you know, it's fine. And then I'll still only be 1 generation behind on my Lizardmen and not 2. Well, that'll be nice. I can get out all those old Salamanders and Razor Dons. I got a bunch of those old crappy sculpts. There you go.
Yep.
All right. That's a good answer, by the way, Tom, as to why you only have one printer, as opposed to the bank of printers I'm sure you would have given the alternative.
Yeah. I mean, yep.
Sure, it would just be like you'd have some kind. Your basement would just be that.
It'd be a
Okay,
print shop.
sure. So there you go. There's Seraphon prediction, but the large question remains: are we going to see additional holdups because of whatever's going on with the Sylvaneth book? Does this push everything else back? Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, I wish maybe they bumped the General's Handbook up.
Well, apparently that book's not delayed, so that one must not be trapped somewhere.
Right.
For whatever
as far
reason.
as we know.
Yeah. Well, they seemed pretty confident about its release in June, so
Right.
clearly they weren't worried about it. Whereas they, with the Sylvaneth, they said it could be 2 days, it could be 2 months. They were very like non-committal in the questions that were asked. So I don't know. Okay, cool. What else we got?
I don't know. I'm reading comments.
So yeah, I think that you might be right there. So Reliant didn't mention he thinks the soft covers are printed in a different place. I think that might be correct. I don't know. I know the hard covers are printed in another country. I don't know the soft covers might not be.
So let's talk about the Pro Painter contrast video.
Yeah, man, that came out. That was cool. I assume my invitation just got lost in the mail. No.
Sorry. You're clearly from the quality of your recent Slanesh stuff. It just doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I gotta up my game.
Yeah,
no, that's fine.
You're not a company man, Vince. Sorry.
I'm clearly
you have
not.
me on your show.
As long as I've got you around, you this lodestone around my neck, they're never bringing me in.
I am like anti-company repellent. Like my presence just drives GW away.
That's fine. You keep me on the straight and narrow, Tom. I appreciate that. That's
indeed. I make sure that you're not on the take.
No, it was an awesome video. It was good to see everybody that they brought in. I thought that was really cool. I liked their feedback, and it was funny too because all those people have not everyone in the room does not just because they're like quote unquote pro painters. And by the way, everybody they interviewed on there is an awesome artist. Yeah. What's important to understand about that is it's not like there's some kind of unified style of people who are painting at that level, right? And that's what I thought was really interesting is that like a lot of the people they had in there have very different styles in the way that they paint, and yet they all found some use for these, which I thought was really cool. So and I liked their feedback. It was interesting to see how, and I know that a lot of them are going to do their own individual reviews as well, right? Yeah. So like I know Ben Comets mentioned he's going to do a full review once he gets a hold of the sort of full set in June and stuff like that. And I'm sure many of the other painters will as well. And I'll be really interested to see how they integrate them into their style because there was a lot of when I talked to sort of the chemist and he mentioned how the heavy metal team is using it. They mentioned a lot of different ways that they were experimenting and using them. They're just another interesting tool in the toolbox. Right. So
did you see Tyler's bombardier that he posted?
Yeah, it was really good. It was cool.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, these might make it into my lineup. Like, there's a chance, GW, that your black is going to make it into my lineup.
No, it looked good. I thought he was. I mean, obviously Tyler's a very good painter, and he is. I think that that bombardier was a great example of. There was a lot of people who originally, when they saw just the things people had done in 2 seconds, they're at a table under poor conditions when they just got the paints, and people were like, "Oh, clearly they're crap. Look at how bad they apply." And I'm like, "Well, the person just picked up that paint 8 seconds ago and was in a rush. Let's give it a little bit of a more decent shot here."
I mean,
I think Tyler's miniature was a great example of what you can do with just some careful application.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He had, he was talking about using the medium. and using the medium to like glaze and blend and feather the edges, and like that's what he created, all those like glaze transitions and stuff like that with that. You know, and so like the smoke had a nice effect, and then you had a nice clear color and you know, shadows on the gear and stuff like that. And I see that and I'm like, yeah, that could be a good tool.
Right. You know, and whatever. I mean, I don't want to deal with like the negativity out there, because there's been some with people saying like, oh, the people who went and reviewed are just blowing smoke or something, or that these are dumb and just for noobs or something like that. That's all stupid. I hate all of that.
Let me just say this. Even if they are for noobs, I'm buying a set for my daughter.
Absolutely. Like, one, paints can have different products can be used for different people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I don't think that's the case at all. And number three, I have no reason to not think that everybody who is in that video is not completely above board. Right? Like, those are all great artists and people who I trust, and you know, that's nonsense.
Right.
So all of that's just silly. I think
you're just bitter about not going.
Me personally? No, I'm okay with it. That's perfectly fine. I mean, I will definitely be getting a set and giving them a full review as well. I'm excited about them. I'm always okay, I have a problem, and that problem is called paints. Like
it's such a problem. It's such a problem, folks.
I mean, I have 500 to 600 paints on my walls around me. Okay.
Like that stuff will go bad before he can use it.
Look, it's important to have whoever has the most paint when they die wins. That's how it works. So, you know.
Cool. I hold that truth with models. They don't have to be painted. It's just models.
Sure.
Like, who has the most models?
Yeah. So it'll be good. I thought that was a very cool video. I was super glad that they got everybody in there, and
totally agree.
I liked all the people I got, and it was a lot of fun. So good stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited for Contrast. I'm gonna line up, and I'm interested to see what the release looks like. Like, if they have like a set for Stormcast, or if they have like certain sets, or if it's or if you have to buy a whole set, or is it all individual? Because I don't want to buy like a $500 set, but
sure. Well, there's only 34 in the line, or 29 or something. Like I said, it's a limited number.
And they're not going to be. They're not like, the price is already going up on the normal pots, and then on top of that, this other stuff's dropping. So I mean, I'm guessing they're going to be like $7 a bottle.
I don't know. I have,
because they have a higher volume than the standard paints did as well.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I mean, I'll factor that into whatever review I take into account, as always, right? Like, price is price. Cool. There you go. All right, cool. What else we got? Forbidden Power stuff. Forbidden Power.
Oh yeah, Forbidden Power stuff. Yeah, so we found out like a lot of just random information, right?
Yeah.
The Mercenaries was explained. Like, all the reviews began to be dropped. What were your initial impressions after the reviews?
So my initial impression is that they have mismarketed this expansion.
Yes. Continue. Go on.
Okay.
Elaborate.
Sure. So my impression of this is that Forbidden Power is a really awesome, narratively driven, narratively focused expansion. That there's a lot of stuff in here that will play very well, especially for narrative type gamers and for people looking for that sort of thing. Yes, there is some match play stuff in here. I'm not saying it's only that, for God's sakes. Okay, like, something doesn't have to be 100% something. I am saying that it's driving focus. Let's call it can be anything from 51% to more, right?
Yeah.
Is narratively driven. And I think when you look through it, that's mainly what the stuff in there is for. Now, and that there are some small match play elements. Go ahead.
So this is what I would say. Forbidden Power, ready for it, is Firestorm with endless spells and a terrain piece.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I know that that's hard for people to wrap their brain around, because they saw this and they wanted malign sorcery with, like, bonus stuff.
Well, and we had been saying we thought it was malign sorcery too.
Right. Like that's
Right.
how we understood the product. And what I'm coming to realize, like it comes with all like the tokens and all the bits and all that stuff that you need to play the campaign that's in there.
Right.
Like
Because you've
this
got,
is
well, this is it.
Firestorm.
You have a big campaign type focus thing
Yep.
in there, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
have like the growing artifacts, a la
Yep.
Holy War, that allow you to grow over games, a la as you and I have both mentioned online.
Yep.
Holy Wars and Holy Havoc, Herner's tournaments do this sort of thing, you're growing over time.
Yep.
Right. Just a lot of the different elements of it are much more narratively driven. Again, that is not to say there aren't elements for matched play. Of course there is. Just like there
there's
was
some
for
allegiances,
Firestorm.
there's endless spells, there's some match play points, but at the end of the day, what we're buying is we're buying a narrative box. And let me just say that the pointing of stuff like the terrain is pointed for narrative play. Like it is not aggressive.
It's not attractively, cheaply pointed.
Yeah, it's not aggressively pointed. Like, let's be honest, the -2 bravery Nagashhead is 60 points.
Yeah, sure. Well, that big terrain piece everybody was worried about that like everybody would just suddenly have, and we'd all be putting like Stormcast Game of Thrones engines on our table. And
which I love the idea of, but
sure. Sorry, I just thought of a funny series of jokes to make based on that comment, but I'll hold my tongue.
All in good time.
Sure. That being priced at 100 points is like right there says no, it's not showing up on every table.
So is this as game impacting as a warp storm or a warp vortex? The Skaven vortex?
Oh, no. But then that's not a fair comparison. Like you could say, is the warp vortex as impactful as the purple sun? And the answer would be no. Is it as impactful as the comet? And the answer would be no. Like we have 3 different endless spells type things all sitting at 100 points, and they are not all
vastly different utility. Yes.
Yeah. So
some of them are worth 160 or 200 points.
I would, if you're asking me what I think about Rat Trap, I would just put Rat Trap at like 500 points and unmake it. That's what I would do if the new GHB cost would be 500 points and I'd get nobody to ever play it again. That would be my solution. It's not the best solution. Actually, the real solution is just rewrite the war scroll and fix it. But anyways, joking.
It's not like they've ever done that before.
That's fine. So yeah, I mean we've got that. We can talk about Mercenaries for a minute because obviously that's a big thing, right? I think Firestorm is the correct one. And by the way, I loved Firestorm. I thought the Firestorm allegiances were cool. Once the Firestorm allegiances got set up to be only Grand Alliance, right?
Yep.
Perfect. All problems evaporated immediately.
And functionally, that's what we've gotten here.
Right.
I mean, like, yes and no. What I would say is that it is more than being, quote, like, generic allegiances. Like, they are their own thing. They have their own set of items, their own set of spells or prayers. They have their own set of everything, right? Mm-hmm. And I think some of them have competitive legs. Not all of them, but, like, I don't know that the Lethis Order one does. Like, there might be a build out there that's weird and janky, but in general...
I think the Lethis one does. I think it does if you're for until the KO book happens. It's a way to do a pseudo KO army. I can talk about that later when we do the show.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
It's the only people I think it helps.
Is KO?
Yeah. But that's a different story. Yes. Yeah. You got the interesting one with Grief.
Let me just say, if like we're going into a tinfoil hat prediction show. And if some of my predictions come true, I think that the Legion of Grief has real legs on it, like real legs on it.
Yeah, I agree. The Legion of Grief and the Lethis or whatever, the two, the defender in the narrative, which is the city of Lethis is being attacked, and then the attacker is the Legion of Grief led by Oleander, right? Like, cool. Again, I love that all this has this like narrative framework and is driving it, right?
Yep.
Those both seem fine. I don't know that, like, I have no idea how impactful the Legion of Grief will be, really. It's hard for me to tell. you know,
I don't think it's going to be like a tier 0 or whatever, or even tier 1, but I think it'll be strong tier 2.
well, it's more because trying to find the intersectionality of like what does Night Haunt getting brought in more to legions actually look like and do is
I can
hard
tell you.
is hard for me to really predict what that looks like at the end. Okay, because some of the best stuff in Night Haunt was already in Legions and was already playing as part of Legions, right?
No,
So
I
the
mean, like,
question is,
but I would push back. Like, the big things that change, like the math that changes, just
Yep.
as an aside, the math that changes is the fact that you can have Olander in faction with Arkan,
yeah, I understand.
so that he can steal her spell and cast her spell, and still get cast bonuses. Because like before, it was hard to pull cast bonuses from like corpse cards and things like that. Now you can actually do that. The other big synergy that shows up suddenly is you have a bunch of Mirmorn Banshees, which are like hyper punchy but super fragile, right?
Yep.
Picking up synergies from the fact that like even if all of them die, you spend a command point and respawn a unit of 12 near a gravesite. And
Sure.
necromancers now can be allied, or like before they couldn't even be allied in. Now necromancers can give those banshees double pilot.
You've been on the Banshee train for a long time. You know, I played
Dude,
a game that's
I'm calling it Shrieker Host. Like
okay.
Shrieker Host, Legion of Grief. It's going to be scary.
It's still a lot of very thin wounds on big bases.
It is.
I watched it this last weekend go into play with like a 12 Banshee unit charging in with bonus attacks into some free guild and getting blown apart. Okay, like because they charged in and then all the handgunners shot and then there were a lot less Banshees.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
totally.
because it only like sure they have ethereal and only like 6 or 7 wounds got through.
But there's not a lot of
half the unit was gone.
Right.
Right? Like, yeah, sure, they did a lot of damage back, but okay. You know. Anyway. I just whatever. So let's talk more about mercenaries for a moment. So we got the 2 mercenary things right now. And so I'm obviously going to do this off the top of my head. So if I miss something, please do forgive me and feel free to correct me in the comments. I am watching the comments if I miss something here. But you've got 2 discrete things. Basically, you have a lodge.
Only 2 in Forbidden Power.
Only 2 in Forbidden Power. You have a particular like lodge of Fire Slayers and a particular court, I guess, of FEC, like a sort of narrative construct. And like you can't take any people with these other lodges or special characters, right? So you like, for example, you can't take the named Fire Slayer guy from Underworld, right? Because he's both a named character and Vorstag or whatever.
You can't take the name characters, and you can't take any. Well, in general, you can't even take any Rune Fathers either.
Correct. Well, so generically, you can't do like the special characters or these certain things. And then, so here's the sort of broad construction of it in match play. They have the same 1 in 4 mercenaries. Here you go. You want the sum. Mercenaries are
allies.
Worse allies that have a broader pool to be selected from. Okay, there's your headline. So they have the same 1 in 4 restriction as allies, and
not only the same, they share the 1 in 4 restriction.
Correct. Exactly. Yes. So like, you know, in other words, if you've got 5 units total or 4, 4 units total in your army, only one of them can be either a mercenary or an ally. Either one of them will use that 1 in 4 spot. Okay. In match play, they also chew up your ally allotment points. Right? So like in a 2,000 point game, you have 400 points of allies. Any mercenaries you add reduce from that 400 points. They suffer from all the same restrictions as allies. In other words, like they don't count as battle line, but they do count towards your leaders, artillery, behemoths, right? All that sort of thing. They never benefit from your allegiance abilities or anything like that. And most importantly,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, here's the most important, interesting restriction. if you have any mercenaries,
Yep.
then you do not get a command point at the top of your first turn. Okay.
Yep.
So like normally when it's the top of your one, you take over and you get your first command point. Could be your very first one if you have no battalions, right?
Yep.
And if you have mercenaries, you do not get that, which is obviously, I think, hugely impactful.
Right.
Right. Like that's a big.
It functionally adds a tax of 50 command or 50 points to all of the units because you're losing a command point over the course of the game.
Well, you're not just losing a command point over the course of the game. You're losing what can often be the most critical command point. Right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
you're losing like your like a potential alpha strike or early game play command point.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because oftentimes that's the command point you need to execute your first turn plan. To run 6, to reroll a charge in case something goes really bad, or to battle shock immune to be resistant to something, right? If you've got a low drop and you're just going to kind of sit there and try to, basically try to beta strike them, right?
Yep.
So that's a really, really great and clever cost. Now, in addition to everything I just said, so they have the same restrictions as allies in all the ways, exempting that they can be, you don't have to share a Grand Alliance, right? But all you can draw them from right now is these two things as a forbidden power, the
That'll
Fire
change.
Slayers and the Terror guys. Sure. And we'll talk about that with GHB because we know we're getting more coming, so we'll do some tinfoil hat prediction on that.
Yep.
But in the case of the Fire Slayers, you can have anything except Rune Fathers and the aforementioned like special characters and crap like that.
Yep.
And you can have in FEC you can't have any Royal Zombie Dragons or Terrorgeists, right? In any way,
right? You can't. You can't have any of the big bats or any of the big monsters.
Right. Either with the dude on top or without. Right. So like you could have like a Ghoul King on foot or an Archregent or just some ghouls, but you can't have any of the big boys, right?
Yeah, and before everybody loses their minds about everybody always getting 2 Archregents, because I know people were talking about that.
Sure.
Like as the ultimate
not sure that's
grab.
the biggest deal, but sure, okay.
What I would say is that those are going up. I hate to tell you, folks. Like they're not going to stay at 200 for this GHB. They're just not. Like in addition to already being outrageously well costed, like they will move it to like 220 at the minimum, just so you can't field 2 of them. It breaks the cap of getting those 4 spells and all that other stuff from them. So their cost is going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's I don't. There you go. There's your first wild prediction of the show, I guess. I don't know
so wild.
That's the case, but sure. Okay,
Hashtag cool. Not so wild.
And also, yes, as has been pointed out, like notably, you wouldn't have as Haywo was just about to point out. This is going to be the next thing I mention, right? We tend to think of these things as showing up with all of their abilities. Like when we think about an Archregent, we think about him being able to summon because of the Charnel Throne for free, right?
Right.
You have no Charnel Throne.
Right.
It's a command
so you're
point
paying another command point for 20 more.
Point you don't have because you didn't start with one, right? Or a command point you started 1 down on, right? Let's put it that way. Like we tend to think of these things like with their allegiance abilities and with all of the synergies of their army,
all their toys,
and yeah, they're just not that, right? When you're showing up like this as a worse ally, you're just not showing up with all of those toys. You're whatever it says on the war scroll. Period. Right. So arguably, even let's assume the points don't adjust. Okay. Fine. The reality is an FEC Archregent in Allegiance at 200 points is actually far more cost efficient than one in some other random army, right? Because he just has more abilities.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He has absorbed a bunch of extra stuff that he does not have without changing his points when he's in FEC Allegiance. So, whatever. It's fine. If they go up, they don't go up. I mean, cool. I read those rules and I was like, okay, seems fun to me. Neat. I mean, I don't imagine they'll be in a huge number of competitive lists, if any, but they could eventually show up. Here's what I'll say. I'll say the same thing I said to you, which was these are the most helpful to the armies with the least stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like if you're Gutbusters or something, who cares about your allegiance ability or whatever, right? You don't have much you're offering anybody anyways, right?
Right.
So bringing in like some random Fire Slayer allies to have a big, you know, pseudo tough damaging horde, again, it wouldn't be as good. You can bring in them Hearthguard Berserkers. Congratulations. They're not going to be as good as the Hearthguard Berserkers in Fire Slayers.
Not at all.
Even close.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because you don't have the all the characters to do everything you need to do to get them being super awesome, right?
Well, I mean, you could bring in them and a Rune Smiter for a Deep Strike, and that'll get you a long way. Don't get me wrong.
Sure, it's arguably better than what you had. And that's my point. Like in an army like Gutbusters that basically shows up with nothing. And I don't mean that in any negative way. They're a very fun army to play. I just mean like you don't have a book. You don't have a bunch of allegiance abilities. You don't have a bunch of stuff forcing you to be linear. Right. They could actually be quite valuable because they're giving you they're giving you a bunch of bodies, giving you something relatively tough. Yeah.
Like I imagine like it could be useful in something like as weird as this is, something like a Phoenix Temple list. Phoenix Temple would give them 4 spells per turn to cast in Phoenix Temple to buff up all their phoenixes. It would give them some deep striking, summonable ghouls, so some mobility that the elves don't have for bodies, to summon in the backfield. It would be a nice kind of like allied option, and then you could like kind of model them as like elf necromancers, like summoning the like living in the dead, eternal flame stuff. Like it'd be a neat modeling opportunity. That said, I just don't like most armies just aren't going to run that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, the more synergistic and aligned your forces are, as I said, like in Skaven or in my Skaven or my daughters or my Slanesh, there is no way I would ever use any of these mercenaries. No way. Why would I throw points away on something that's so much worse than what I regularly have in my army? Like there's just no way I would ever use it in any of those 3 armies, right? I'm just even in Ironjaws. Okay, if you think, oh well, Vince, you're only picking armies that maybe are allegedly, I guess, good or whatever, right? Okay, I'll pick my Ironjaws. I don't think that's defensible.
What I'll say is this. I mean, in their defense, I think that a Rune Smiter and 10 Hearthguard Berserkers, it's 360 points. Mm-hmm. That's going to net you 20 wounds deep striking.
Sure.
On a 5-up, 4-up, right? Reroll all wounds, 20 attacks, 6s do 2 mortals. So it's a nice backfield unit that you can drop in and really threaten any point that you want with that, right? Sure. And so like I think that is an aggressively pointed functional unit. Now, do I think everybody's going to run those? No, but I could see a number of armies that I wouldn't mind having that in the backfield.
Yes, and it's usually the ones that don't already have tool sets, right?
Yeah, like I think like Dispossessed, super aggressive use, a helpful tool for Dispossessed. Ironically, they can bring in the Fire Slayers anyways, and they don't even have to lose their command point. Right. Yeah. So like, there's no, like they don't need to do that, but they could if they need it. Like they really could if they had to.
My point is that it's actually super interesting because one of the things we've talked about multiple times on this show, is that it's very tricky to give things to the have-nots that don't just help the haves as much. Right.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree.
And this mercenary thing actually kind of does that. Again,
it walks the line very well.
But it's going to help those who have the least reason to play in a linear fashion more, which is the people without books, without a bunch of rules. So there you go.
And it also gives like one of the critiques has always been for I love it. One of the critiques has always been for sorry, I got to thinking about something. One of the critiques has always been for for dwarves or a number of armies that they don't have wizards, and now you just bring them in with mercenary companies. Like everybody truly has multiple options. Like like now, instead of having to run Stormcast at 140 points for one spell, I could grab a regent for 200 for two spells.
If you do that, you must model an archregent who has a fake beard on, like Santa Claus style, that's like hanging a little low, and there's like a gap in between his pointy chin and the beard. So he's like pretending to be a dwarf. That's what
I would make a dwarf necromancer and then get the skull box that has all the dwarf skulls in them, and make a bunch of skeleton dwarves, like stunty skeleton dwarves. I would use the old skeletons from like the prior, like the Tomb King skeletons that have the really like thick bones.
Sure.
Like that are huge compared to the normal skeletons, and then put the dwarf heads on them, like the skull, and have like skeletal
quality.
Yeah.
So that's Mercenaries. I was cool to see those. I mean, I don't know when we'll talk about Forbidden Power. I'm not sure yet. At some point we will, in more detail after its release. But
in a couple weeks.
Yeah. But that's cool. Yeah. It all seemed fine. Finally, we also got the scenery stuff. I think that's what I'm most excited for. I put it in an order for my scenery.
Are you getting scenery?
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yep.
What are you getting?
One of the dioceses, and then of course the scatter terrain, or as I call it, the basing kit.
Yeah, sure. No, it's so funny that you say that. Like, I actually didn't buy any of the terrain, amazingly enough. Like, I held off, but I bought the scatter terrain for bases.
Sure, yeah, the scatter terrain for bases is too good. Like, that one is too much of a deal. I looked at that and I was like, man, I want to use those on bases so badly. And I bought one of the dioceses actually for a base as well.
Sure.
It's all just basing, Tom. That's the only reason I buy terrain for basing.
Got it. I shame on me for thinking otherwise. No, I mean, what I will say is that I will probably do. I'll probably get some of the big kits, but I learned my lesson with Sector Mechanicus. I'm gonna wait like 3 months to see if they start getting bundled, like in ways that are more aggressively priced. Because Sector Mechanicus, if you'll remember, and even the Sector Imperialis, like they had all the initial launches. And then like 3 to 4 months later, all of it got bundled in more aggressively priced boxes. And so I'm like, I'm going to wait 3 to 4 months. I'm not in a press for terrain. Obviously, I'm printing a bunch of my own. So I'm going to wait and see if I can get any good deals on it before I buy in on it. So
sure.
We'll see.
No, I like these. Also, one quick note. Everybody talked about the stairs on the dais.
Yeah, right? Did you see the design discussion on them?
Yeah, that's what I was going to call out. So they purposely made sure everybody's like, why are the stairs so steep? Why are the stairs so steep? Nothing's going to sit on the stairs. And the designers were like, yeah, we thought about that. And so they showed you actually like a cutaway of the side of the stairs. And the stairs are 1.8 inches high, and they're 0.96 inches deep. So if you have a model sitting on the edge at the top of the dais and a model against the bottom stair, effectively no one is sitting on this part, right? On the steps.
Yes, they're
you have maintained unit coherency. Yeah. With just like a tiny amount of give on it. I was like, well played, sir. Well played. I thought that was awesome.
Did you see how they did the pillar placement? How like those joints that glue into the stairs can be repositioned? I saw that and I was like, oh. Why, hello.
Yeah, I saw that in person. I didn't mention it, but yes, I was playing with the kit because they had the whole thing out.
Oh, nice.
And you could they let you rebuild it right there because you had all the pieces. You could take them off and remove them and stuff. And it was really cool. All the different ways you could kind of put them together. So it's neat.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it can be magnetized. Because that's what interests me actually is rather than gluing all of those stairs onto different points, like how I might be able to magnetize that.
Well, one of the cool things I like about the scatter terrain kit, is that you get 2 copies of Sigmar effectively.
Yeah.
Right, because you get the stand up Sigmar statue, the one that's kind of in the back of some of those, and then you also get the fallen one where he's laying down. It's not exactly the same sculpt; it's a little different.
Sure.
But that's kind of cool. I dig that. So.
Yeah,
both of those are good basing. Those are both just made for bases. I was gonna say, having somebody on those.
I know that I'm going to have a ton of the Sigmar statues eventually. Like it's just going to happen, and they're all the same. So what I decided I'm going to do with it is when I do my Celestic Prime conversion, instead of doing all the swirly junk, I'm going to have him hovering over the statue of Sigmar.
Sure, yeah, makes sense.
So, that'd be sweet.
Yep. All right. Yeah. So. all in all, that's cool. It's ironic that I'm most excited about the terrain release, given
Sure.
where
You're
I'm
so
at with this.
terrible.
But
Yes.
there we go. Just wait till you see what I do to that main piece to that dais that I ordered, because I got, as I said, I also ordered that for basing, and I've got some plans. And yeah, I'm gonna be destroying that thing. So there you
There's
go.
some short stories coming, and you should check them out. They're like, I have loved how they've like, a la Malign Portents. There's a series of short stories that are coming.
Yes.
So you should check them out.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Forbidden Power short stories have actually been really good so far.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and do the Olympia class?
Sure.
Before I
So
do the
quick
final
shout out.
cut?
Yep. Quick shout out. Olympia class, June, Olympia, Washington. I'm teaching. It's the Imperial Knight class.
Yep.
But we're going to obviously cover a lot of different techniques. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you wanted to talk about painting metals and blending and doing freehand and weathering and all that, all the things we cover in the Knight Titan class, or the Imperial Knight class, sorry. So that is in Olympia, Washington on June 22nd, 23rd. We got a good number of people, but we still have some spots. I would love to see you there. So if you're in the area and are interested, the link is down below. I would certainly love to have you come along. It's going to be a super fun time. So if you're up there in that sort of Seattle, Washington, Vancouver, none of that's too far away, I guess, by the standards of the greater US, then I would love to see you there. So there you go.
For this next, for the last news item, I'm going to blend it into my...
Oh, wait, hold on. One more thing. One more class-related thing. All the Gen Con events went up. And so if you're... I don't know how many seats are still available because I haven't looked since they went up on the 19th. But if you're interested, I am teaching at Gen Con. It's kind of hard to find my classes because I don't have a company. I'm just me. And so there's no way to, like, effectively search me out. So I put all of the links for my classes in the description. So you can just click them directly and you'll go to my class. So if you're interested, if you're going to be at Gen Con and you want to take any of the classes I'm teaching, you can just look in the description of this or any recent video, by the way, and you'll see the links. So there you go. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Good. For the pick of the week this week, I'm going to combine it with the last news item, which was BOBO is this week.
Yes, man.
And man, there was some fantastic coverage. Did you watch any of the games?
I did. Yeah. Of course, I had to watch Game 3 because Game 3 was two Ben Sava painted armies against each other, but it was Ben against Joe, right? And it was the new Slanesh. So yeah, of course, had to watch that.
Yeah, no, it was a great game. I watched that one. I enjoyed that. I also watched Game 4, which was Skaven against the Tzeentch list that I picked out. So if you'll remember, I talked a couple weeks ago about how I did a preview show with Rob Symes on Honest Wargamer for favorite lists, like list favorites. And out of the 200 some lists, I picked two lists. One was Gary Percival's list, and then the other one was this Tzeentch list that in Game 4, going into Game 5, it won its first 4 games, and it lost in the 5th game against. Who was it that lost in Game 5? Richie from Just Play, who took 3rd with Gloomspite. It was lined up to podium, basically. This Tzeentch list had Richie not taken it out. But again, Gloomspite coming in at number 3, which was a fantastic placement. First and second were Jack Armstrong with his Daughters of Cain, and 2 was somebody playing Skaven. Is that right? Or FEC?
Yeah, Doc Skaven and Dan. I mean, Dan got second.
Oh, Dan. That's who it was. Dan. Dan, indeed. Yeah. Dan playing Skaven, and then
Doc and Skaven and Gitz. Yep.
Yeah, and Gitz coming in 3rd. So I think that's Gitz's first real podium, or at least a big one recently. But yeah, no, I was super stoked about that Tzeentch list.
No, that was cool. While we're mentioning the Honest Wargamer and the BOBO coverage, we should mention that in response to that coverage, Honest Wargamer launched a GoFundMe, right? To help up some cameras. He really wants to be able to show off people's armies and stuff like that. I think he might have already reached his goal or something. He's now trying to exceed it. So, but I mean, I think it's still open. So, It's pretty great. I love seeing the community support. I mean, obviously, if you watched any of the coverage, it was excellent. I love the way he cuts everything up. I love the way that they report, that they talk about what's going on. I mean, he's
Super
really taking this
professional.
kind of stuff to the next level. So there's no one who's doing this kind of coverage better. So like, if you want to support somebody, if you want to throw them a couple bucks or something for that, it's a great investment because it only ends up coming back to you through all the great coverage he's
Yep.
providing, for free. Like, you don't have to pay anything to get that. He puts it all
Yeah.
up on YouTube, puts it all up on the Twitch.
He's about
It's
400
awesome.
pounds short.
Okay.
So he's getting there. He's getting close.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew he was close. I couldn't remember exactly how much when I looked at it earlier. So go check that out.
He's
I'll throw a link in the
400 squiggles short.
what
Monopoly dollars.
Monopoly dollars, yeah, whatever they are, whatever they use over there. That's fine. I'll throw the link down there for it so people can go check that out because it's
Yep.
excellent commentary, it's excellent coverage, and it's a lot of fun. And he just the way he makes it into a true event, and I mean that in the real sense of the word, where there's always something happening, there's always something interesting. It's great. So his post wrap up show, which I watched earlier today, was also pretty great. So
I'm not gonna lie, I watched that as well. I would have loved to been there. Like watching the coverage made me want to be there.
Sure.
So
Well, Clint was there. I think LV was over there, right? You could have been over there.
I know. Like the funny thing is like watching that, like I would have loved to play. That's fine. I'd have also just loved to do commentary. Like there was a bunch of great games. So no, it was good.
Yeah, I get that. All right, so for my pick of the week, we mentioned all of that stuff, and that's fine.
Yep.
I wanted to. There's actually two little quick picks of the week I want to mention. One very current, and one sort of something about something not current. So first off, Doom and Darkness did a Notorious GT list review for a GT coming up down in Australia.
Yep.
It's a lot of fun. The three of them going through the armies and talking about them. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes. I got a lot of painting done. I was listening to that while I was finishing up that mirror. So thanks for providing me with a lot of content, Doom. It was very much appreciated. And that's just a lot of fun. I love Doom's list reviews because Doom is always like the nicest guy when he's reviewing lists, and he leaves it completely to his co-host to be mean to the lists. Whereas he's like, oh no, I think this is all this has always got a chance. Oh, sorry, it's in New Zealand. Is that where it is? Okay, I thought it was in Australia.
Yeah, Notorious is in New Zealand.
Okay, got it. I'm sorry. Isn't that all? It's all in the southern hemisphere. It's close.
Yeah, they're just islands down there.
Right. It's all basically the same thing. I apologize. I mistook it. I thought it was actually in Australia. So I am very sorry. And thank you, Cinderfall. DC Paints, just hit me up. I'll drop a real comment in the show afterward, and I'll get you all set up. And I'll make sure I get you into the Facebook group too. At any rate, so check that out. It was real good. Then secondly, Victor Case put up a fun video today. I just wanted to call this out. He does these like blast from the past videos sometimes where he'll go and look at really old books and just kind of flip through them page by page and just talk about what he remembers of them. And he put up like the 4th edition Skaven book, Warhammer Fantasy Battle Skaven book. And this was the first book I had for my first real army.
Yep.
And I love that old book. It's so goofball and so cheesy, but it like watching that video just reminded me of all of the things I loved when I was, 17, 18 and started playing this game. So if you have a love for Skaven from the 90s, as I do, as that was my first real love in this game, my first real army and real thing that I went out of my way to get, and I loved my Skaven to death, and I still do love them, although they have been eclipsed in my heart, obviously now. But but if you dig that, go check that out. So there you go. I'll link both of those down in the show notes so people can go check that out. And I apologize again for confusing the country. I do understand the difference between New Zealand and Australia. I just didn't. He doesn't.
He doesn't.
Mistook one for being the other. No, one is where Mad Max is. The other one is where the Hobbit is. I get it. I know the difference. Yeah, it's fine. That's how you know the difference.
Fair enough.
Okay. So let's talk about some hobby time. What are you working on, man?
Well, right now, as we speak, I'm doing some detailing on some Stormcast for my son. And it would seem like that's all I've been doing. But in fact, I didn't take pictures of this, but I based / rebased 60 some Fire Slayers. And by that, I mean, like, so my prior Fire Slayers were just like flat base, crackle paint, glued Fire Slayer on top. That's how I started with my fire, like, scheming basing. And, like, I decided, since those were all Volkites, all of my other units of Fire Slayers, I wanted to have different bases. Because, one of the common critiques has always been, like, you look across the Fire Slayer army, and they're all the same. Like, you racist people, they're all short and have mohawks. And so what I decided I wanted to do... They
are a very samey army.
Hey, shut up. Like, I did it so that, like, all of my foot heroes are on boss rocks, right? They're all on, like, statue heads.
Sure.
All of, like, my Volkites are on the precipice of, like, lava pools on, like, big build-up cork, like, almost like an inch tall. So, like, they feel big and imposing. And then all of my Oryx are on, like, mixed lava field / like, crusting lava. And so, like, I did, like, a nice division so that hopefully visually the bases will help distinguish the units.
Nice. It's a good trick.
And then I did 2 Magnet Rock bases as well, which was fun. And then I went in. So for those that you don't know, like, Vince's paint judging criteria. So Vince has the, like, 15-foot check, 10-foot check.
It's 10 foot, like, 1 foot, 1 inch.
There you go. 10 foot, 1 foot, 1 inch. And I realized that, like, I was failing my 1 inch test on a lot of these. And so I went back in and put, like, dropped runes and keys and shit, like, all throughout the lava fields and stuff like that. Just super subtle, super small, like some skulls tucked away here and there. Nothing, like, egregious. But just enough so that, like, as you're, like, looking at it, you're like, oh, look at that. Like, yes. I wanted that effect on all of the models. And so
it should grab me at 10 feet, interest me at 1 foot, and amaze me at 1 inch.
There you go.
That's how you win. You want to get best painted in an event I'm judging. That's what it should do.
Right. And I don't really care about Vince's paint judging. I'm more concerned about, like, I know that if it meets his criteria, it'll meet anybody else's criteria.
Yes.
So, yeah. So we'll see. So I'm working on the Fire Slayers. Now, let me just say, here's my transition. Depending on how GHB goes, this army could hit the shelf real quick. Take a real hard right into Nighthaunt. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think that, like, do you really foresee, and well, I guess let's leave it for the prediction thing.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yep.
That's fine. For my hobby time, finished up my Fane and the Contorted Epitome, and people have really responded to those. So thank you, everybody who gave me nice comments on that stuff. I've had a lot of fun with those.
Sure. Let me just say, go on record, you son of a bitch. Like, that. Like, I'm so upset because now I have to set my stupid ghosts down next to these stupid free-handed works of art in your stupid army. I just hate it. Like, the only worst thing would have been if I had done Slaanesh and had to set the same models down next to them. Like how I did with Daughters. Like, I learned my lesson with Daughters. You never paint the same army as Vince if your team's with him. Because, like, it's obvious. It's comparable. It's right there in front of you. So guess what? Slaanesh, not happening this fall, bud. You painted me out of that box.
No, you can go Mortals. You'll be fine.
Nope. I'd still have a stupid Fane mirror that I would have to sit on the board. And I'd probably still have a stupid Epitome because it's such a good caster. It's just the worst. Okay, I'm done.
That's fine. I respect your decision. No, I mean, well, to be fair, Tom, like, every model in that army has freehand on it. Everyone.
I recognize that. I'm aware. Thanks.
Sure. I mean, it is a passion project, right? Like, that's what passion projects mean. You have passion about them. I could paint Slaanesh happily for the rest of the year. That's not a joke. I love painting that army. I love the colors. I actually got my first game in with the new book this last weekend, and I haven't had that much fun since playing my Iron Jaws. Like, I cannot explain how much more fun than Daughters it is, even though there are some similarities. It is.
Well, it does
It's
everything that you like
yes.
go faster, more, hit hard, explode, and then it has all the tricks and the tools of summoning and strong spell casting and all the things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
like and don't get me wrong, like I enjoy playing my Skaven. I like Skaven right now. I like their incarnation. That's fun too. I've had fun with my Skaven recently, but I've never had as much fun. Back from like Iron Jaws was a high watermark of just fun because it aligned perfectly with my personality. None of that's a
right.
judgment on how the army plays. You can have an army that plays very well and is designed very well and just
Yep.
doesn't align with your style of play,
Yep.
right? Um, but Slanesh is just
It's why I don't play Idoneth.
sure, sure. And this is such a perfect. Like I had played my Slanesh sometimes before the book, obviously. But this is now with having the book and having the new models and having all the rules and putting it on the table. It was just it truly was an ecstatic experience. Like I loved everything about it. I loved the way that they played, the way they died, the depravity, the resummoning, just the nature of the thing. I love painting them. I love the story of them. Narratively and thematically, they align with what I like. So I'm just yeah. They are truly like the meest of armies in every way. And so I'm lucky that they exist. It's so weird to say, but like they're banging on all cylinders for me, and it was super fun. I can't wait to just play them more and more and more and more and more. So it's a shame because many of my other armies will not be coming out of the cabinet for a while, but that's okay. Um, and so now, after I finished up the epitome, I finished up all the small stuff with the exception of. So now it's basically characters, right?
Right.
I have 3 keepers in Celeste, and so I got the keeper out and started going to work, and she's back on my table at home, all prepped up and ready to go. We've got a holiday weekend, obviously, this weekend and here in the States, as it's Memorial Day weekend. And so I couldn't be more excited to, once I get done with this work trip, to go home and have a nice long weekend wherein I will glue myself to my chair and just work on that keeper for hours and hours and hours. And oh, I have such plans with her. Let me tell you what.
Oh boy.
I mean, this is the keeper of secrets. This is what I've been waiting on. Do you know how long I've been waiting on this new model? Do you know, like, I purposefully pleasure delayed and like painted everything else first that I wasn't
Yeah.
as excited about just to wait to get to her, right? And
It all
oh,
led to this.
that's right. Absolutely. I have a playlist created just specifically for painting Slanesh. Like I have a music playlist that I set on repeat, and it starts with the He Knights of Slanesh reveal video
Yeah.
because that's a really great video. Like that's on par in my mind with the original Daughters of Cain
You're
video.
out in your mind, but sure.
Oh, it's on the
I
level.
know. I know. I know. It's your thing. I get it.
And so yeah, then I have all these other similar type songs.
Like when we get high elves, I'll probably be just as ecstatic, and it'll be
Sure.
fine.
Yeah, I hope so, because again, it's just aesthetically the colors I get to use, the way it plays, knowing that I'll get to play this thing, just like everything about it it's great. It's great. All right, I'll shut up now. But there you go. It's that's my hobby time, and it's going to be for a while. So we'll see what else I can do.
Well,
Hopefully
you
people
have
like
3 of them to paint.
Mm-hmm. One of them is going to. 2 of them are actually going to be on the table.
Okay, and is one going to be a competition?
Yeah, the other 2 might end up being in competition as well. Like oftentimes for armies like this, I'll paint the characters up to competition standard just in case I want to use them.
Right.
But the but the one piece is going. Yes, it's for competition. Like one of the keepers will be not in a playable state, is what I'll say. Like it's not.
Sure.
It's for a competition in a way that I couldn't use it on the table. So there you go.
Oh, got it. I know what you're gonna do with it.
Yeah. Yes, you do, because I have discussed it with you. Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
And I'm very excited about that one. So there you go.
Good. Good.
All right. So with that, shall we get to our GHB predictions?
Sure.
Okay. So I feel like it's important. So it's time to strap on the tinfoil hat, and
It seems to be what we do best.
it is what we're here for. We're here to make wacky predictions. Here's where we state that Tom and I know nothing. We are Jon Snow. We know nothing.
We have not been giving any preview things. We have not talked to any insiders. We are going in blind here.
So this is just going to be fun guessing for the next however long we go. Okay.
Yep.
So with that out of the way, we need to level set with obviously what got spoiled. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So we know the new GHB is coming next month.
Yep.
We don't know exactly when. Rumor is pre-order the 8th and for sale the 15th, I guess, or something like that.
Well, so by the way, the White Dwarf for next month is delayed to like the 23rd or something.
Okay.
Like though in this month's White Dwarf, it said next White Dwarf won't be out till like the 23rd of June.
Mm-hmm.
So I anticipate that will be after the GHB drops.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not as interested to talk about the open play stuff just because that's kind of outside of my comfort zone. But obviously what they're adding for open play is the open war army generator, which I know is just like a quick, you put in the units that you have and it generates a little army for you. The close quarters battles and the hidden agendas, which are just like the hidden agendas in match play coming to open play.
Yep.
For narrative play, they announced the Streets of Death, which is city fighting, right?
Yep.
And then new mercenary companies. So this is where we're getting additional mercenary companies. The examples that they gave, now they give this under narrative play, but my guess is much the same way you saw them in Forbidden Power, where if you look, it's like they're introduced in a sort of narrative fashion, but then they say, if used in match play, these are the additional rules you have to use, right?
Yep.
And so the mercenary companies that they give you examples of are more like old dogs of war, right? Where they say perhaps you'll employ the man-eaters of the gut stuffers or a gargant from the notorious Grug brothers, right?
Yep.
And then so that's that. And then in match play we have new battle plans, tournament templates, and then meeting engagements, which the meeting engagements is the 1K size game, like the new way to play a 1K size game. So it has key twists on normal AOS games, taking up a smaller space than a fully fledged game. So obviously we have they're actually going to shrink the board here too, right?
So, okay, 2 questions.
Yes.
What do you think are some new units in the mercenaries?
Mm-hmm.
And
we've got a lot of different questions. Because hold on, let me level set one more thing real quick. The points are also getting pulled out, right, into their own little thing. If the book stays the same size, that's like 30-some pages of additional content that could be in the GHB.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So we've got a lot of space to fill. Also, it should be stated that many of the allegiance abilities that were previously taking up space in the book either
have battle tomes.
Right. Either have tomes or are getting tomes. Right. So we know that there's a lot of room in this book now. And
that summoning rules don't need to be fixed as they've been fixed in prior books.
Right. Exactly. So needless to say, GHB 19 is going to be, my personal take on it at a high level, is this going to be a very different feeling GHB, right, than what we've seen previously.
Yep.
So things I want to make sure we tinfoil hat on and predict. One, we're going to talk a little bit about points and where we see points moving. Okay, that's just fair dinkum. We've got to have that conversation, right?
Yep.
2, new mercenary companies, right? What are we getting as far as mercenary companies go? Who makes sense as mercenaries? They gave the example of man-eaters and giants.
Yep.
We already know we've got FEC and fire slayers. What else is in there? Because I doubt those are the only 2, right? What are we expecting as far as allegiance abilities? And what are we expecting? Let's talk. I want to give some predictions on what we think they're going to do with the 1K game and then we'll also do some other random tinfoil hat stuff, right? Of what else
Sure.
we think is in there. I want to talk about battle plans too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a lot to go through.
Yep.
All right. Where do you want to start? Shall we start with some fun exploration and guessing about the mercenary companies?
Sure. I think that's great.
Okay. So first of all, I'm excited for the return of Dogs of War.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan of Dogs of War. Our forces were built around this, right? Like our teams, our dwarf Ironjaw teams, was built around this concept of Dogs of War.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here's some of my guesses. Like when
Okay.
I look around and think, what else would sell themselves out as mercenaries?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So here would be my particular feelings on what makes good mercenaries within the existing lore.
Yeah.
Some kind of like free people group.
Yes.
Right? Like there's going to be a mercenary group.
Totally agree.
Of like handgunners and swordsmen and or whatever.
Well, I think it'll be everybody but General and Griffin.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, probably like when you're thinking about what it'll be like it'll be sort of like these. The nature of all these free guild type of people that in the world are just out there protecting the cities. So the mortal realms have trained up a bunch of these dudes.
Yep.
Right, as just soldiers, and it would make sense that eventually some of them just get done with their service to the city, and so go well. I need to go make some money, so they go form into companies and sell their services. Right, like that's classically sell swords are often ex-soldiers in a lot of, I guess, both in history and in sort of fantasy tropes. Right.
Yep.
So that would make sense completely to me.
KO.
Yep. That was
KO will be there. They probably will not allow frigates or ironclads, but you may get the gunships.
See, I bet they'll just disallow like ironclads and admirals.
Well, ironclads would already be disallowed because they're out of the points range, unless they drop in points.
Sure. And admirals, I think they'll get rid of.
Sure.
Because the admirals are like pretty. Like that's pretty. Like those
are
the leaders of their society.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
But KO makes such easy sense. Not just because of the nature of their like that they are pretty money obsessed and that they are very much like that in the story.
I mean, they are that thing, sure. Yep.
Right. But also because they're one of the few. They're one of the few races that has a built-in modus operandi within their army of how they get around the mortal realms. Right. Like they actually their army contains their transport mechanism of literally how they get around and do stuff. Whereas like if Ironjaws want to go from point A to point B, they've got to go walk. That's a long way in a realm of infinite space.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
But that being said, speaking of, that's my other prediction. Destruction makes sense as mercenaries. I think there will be an Ironjaws.
You think there will?
I do. And I think you won't be able to have the Mega Boss on Maw Crusher. Not just because of his points value, obviously, but also just because they'll just disallow him in some way. I think it would be normal like foot Mega Bosses taking a bunch of like Ard Boys and stuff like that. Like their Ironjaws are smart enough they could make deals. They like going where fights are. You know what I mean? So they're not stupid. That is to say they're more they're not brilliant. I'm not saying they're scientists over here, but they're not just like animals. They understand. They could make a deal.
Yep.
So I like that.
My calls.
Oh, by the way, I also think if they were going to do an Ironjaws one, they would do a very like the way that they would flavor this would be it's a very specific like clan.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Right. That did this sort of thing once, almost accidentally. Yeah. Like its backstory is going to be that it was following a scrap and ended up accidentally helping somebody.
Yes.
And then you know what I'm saying? And then that other force was like didn't want to fight the Ironjaw, so they just paid him off. Yes. And the war boss or the mega boss was like,
that's a good idea.
A minute.
Yeah.
And just like the penny dropped, right? And so there you go. That's where
so
I'm for them.
My thoughts would be so like I think those are the obvious ones. The ones that I think that are more like edge shooting, that would be a surprise, but I think that there's legs there. Would be the Scourge Privateers.
Oh yeah, man.
I think that would be an interesting grab. So I think Scourge Privateers. I think where's that one?
What do the Scourge Privateers? I mean, it's not a huge list. Do they just allow everything?
Yeah, they just allow everything. Yeah, I mean, like, unless they don't allow Charybdises, and I don't see why they wouldn't. Like, they're not breaking the game. I think a bunch of, obviously, Orcs and Goblins, as we've kind of talked about. In Death, actually, I could see them do Deadwalkers, which is the Necromancer.
I think Death begins and ends with FEC. Because everybody else is too much under Nagash's thumb.
Maybe. Well, but if you did Deadwalkers, it's a Necromancer and his zombies. And that's it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I get it. It's literally like a rogue Necromancer.
It's a rogue Necromancer walking around animating zombies. Right. And a corpse cart and dire wolves. Like, so it's basically a Necromancer and the things he animates. And it's self-contained. It's not in the hierarchy. So, like, I could see potentially... Is it... or no. No. Are Necromancers death mages?
They're death mages, yeah.
Yeah. So Deadwalkers would be all the meaty stuff with no... in a corpse cart. Maybe. I don't know.
They could just say... Like, remember, these are sort of named mercenaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's death mages like, and... Death mages and Deathwalkers, no Coven Throne.
It could literally just be Necromancers.
Okay, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be, you know, Vostalang's shambling horde of Shaiish or something, right?
Right.
And, like, you can take any Necromancer and, you know, these things, and they could use factions for the rest where it makes sense. Sure.
Yep.
That's cool. It would almost feel like anybody who's watched the new Castlevania on Netflix, which if you haven't watched the new Castlevania, you should be watching the new Castlevania because the new Castlevania was amazing.
It was.
But anyways, it would be like the makers or whatever that are in there, Forge Masters or whatever they're called.
Yep.
Those dudes. They're not really Necromancers in the show, but they act a lot like you're describing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that could be a thing.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people mention Skaven in the chat.
Maybe. I don't know.
I will say this. I don't think Skaven are mercenaries ever. They're mercenaries to each other. Like, that is to say, certainly within themselves, they sell their services to each other, right? So, like, classically, that's their whole shtick, as a matter of fact, right? That's how their society is built on. Each clan selling its warriors and services to the other clans, right?
Yep.
But like, when you look at the Skaven and their allies list is like, nah.
Yeah. Allies? They don't need allies.
And they don't show up on anybody's allies lists. Like, they're so insular.
Yep.
They're so sequestered. You know, could they do some weird Skyer or Eshin company? You know, maybe. But it's... honestly, I think it's better to keep Skaven weird and different and hating of everybody else. They've always been the outcast that, like, nobody likes. Like, that's one of the truisms. Everybody hates Skaven. Like, in the end time stories, everybody hated them. Everybody, right? They were just even Chaos that they were working with hated them.
Yep.
You know, they've always been just this this thing of, like, pure, just like sort of pure malevolence that no one ever trusts, because everybody knows they'll stab in the back immediately, right? That they are without trust or honor of any kind, right? And so, you know, I'm okay with that. Whereas, like, that's not true of some other Chaos forces. Like, Chaos mercenaries are an interesting thing, right? We haven't
I have a guess.
Chaos forces yet.
Yeah, no, I have actually a guess for what one Chaos force might be.
Okay.
Like, so I think one obvious one would be like a Slaves to Darkness barbarian tribe or something along those lines.
Sure.
Okay. That, like, a Dark Oath and whatever. But, you know, another one that I could see potentially would actually be Tzeentch Arcanites.
Just because
So,
they would be furthering the machinations of Tzeentch in
right.
some way, as somebody in the comments said.
Yeah. So they're like, hey, we'll help you out. Like, and they just roll up, and you're just like, I don't know, but
Sure.
but I mean, they're willing to help, and so like and so because those were the cults, and so like for Tzeentch, if it's gonna work his plan, if it's gonna move his plan forward, he'll send his followers in to do stuff.
Sure.
And so I could see something where like, it's the proverbial like Tzeentch like cult master who like signs contracts and obeys them to the letter of the law, right?
Sure.
Like the devil dealer.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like chaos are really tough because again, I just somebody said Skaven could be bribed to work with anyone. Like so Scott, you mentioned some comments. I don't know about that because like sure maybe like I said I could see them crafting some story and if they say like Ashen or Sky or a thing that's fine. I agree we're not talking allies. I'm just saying do the Skaven even last long enough to be mercenaries? Do they not just kill you immediately on the way there and or turn tail once they've got the money or anything like that? They are just the definition of untrustworthy and hated, right? But that being said, you could construct a mercenary company out of them. Like because we're talking about a narrative unit, if it were you do open a lot more doors, right?
Let's say this: I could see an open Eshin warband,
sure,
like that.
Yes,
so quickly.
You have the ability to diverge slightly here from the from the standard fluff, and that this can be a little weird, right? Because this does represent some named group of people who've decided to do something different. Yeah.
Actually, this opens a very interesting situation where if they do something like that, you may finally be able to get like Skaven allies for Skaven in Skaven allegiance things. So if you have like Skyer or you have like Pestilence, like if you had Eshin, you could like slip in Eshin finally.
Sure, you mean other groups? Yeah, you actually hire them as mercenaries since you can't take them as allies. Yeah,
right.
Sure. No, that's
but,
funny.
Because they don't normally have allies, and so like maybe Skaven suddenly be able to pick up allies.
Sure, which actually here leads to my next argument. Like if I was going to pick a chaos force that was going to be mercenary, okay.
Yep.
I think the answer is obvious, and I like your Tzeentch story. That's fine, but I think there is only one chaos god that makes sense to me as this kind of mercenary company. Okay, Khorne. And it's Khorne. Yeah, it's like Grug's Skull Takers or something, right? Or that's what the name of the giant. But
and he's like, wait, I get to claim skulls? Sure.
Right. His name is like
you're paying me in skulls.
Skull Blood Death Master Axe Killer. That's his name, and the Axe Killers. Because again, Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows. He doesn't really care about the money, but it's just an easy enough way to keep him fighting, so he can keep he can keep basically just break evening for the transport to get to the battlefield. And like he doesn't care who he kills. These Khorne dudes. It's just a flat even, right? Like they're not concerned with profit because profit isn't what they're in it for. But this just facilitates their travel around the mortal realms to go get in more fights. Right.
Why don't you fight?
And that actually like tracked for me, especially if it was like you could leave out certain units that are maybe like the most dedicated. Like you're not taking Khorne demons and stuff, right? We're talking more about like bloodbound stuff.
Right.
So a bunch of Reavers and maybe Blood Warriors and stuff like that, where they just get paid to show up and murder everybody. Because if if you want somebody who's going to go kill everyone, you hire the people dedicated to a god of basically like murdering everything. That's a pretty good investment, So there you go. That I think like Khorne is the one that makes sense to me. Nobody's hiring Nurgle. Get out of here. You're not bringing disease into your mind. It's like you're gross. Get out of here, right? And I don't know. I would hire Slaanesh, but I could understand if they were. Look, bringing Slaanesh is just bringing the party. Okay, that's just making things more interesting. But sure,
that's not a party.
That's definitely a party, and I know what you're quoting, but I still am with it. Yeah. So I think is there any other allies? Is there anybody we missed? Because they, like I said, they already mentioned the ogres. They already mentioned.
I mean, I think that's
the
far-reaching.
giants.
Some people I could see say Swift Talk agents because it's a bunch.
It's never gonna happen, buddy. You're out of your
But
sticking
the
mind. But
mailman.
it would be amazing. Yeah, sure.
But so here's the deal. I know that some people would be like Swift Talk agents, but here's the deal. You are going to be lucky if they have an entry in the new book.
Sure.
Like if they make it into year 4 as an army, like we're winning, right? Because
the bar of success for one of your favorite armies, Tom, is just literally continued existence.
Right, you're right. Because if you look at that range, there's one kit. No, there's 2 kits currently available from that range too, and one of them is a dual kit with a Wanderer unit.
Sure.
Here's the prediction. We'll use transition. Here's the prediction. Swift Talk agents will cease existing as they are this year.
Okay.
Whether they actually get cut or not. They will cease existing and they will get rolled into a larger elf faction. Like so the Shadow Warriors, which are currently that kit that's available, will get rolled into something else. As will likely also the Skycutter, assuming it survives.
Okay. Yes, somebody said in the comments, Brian said, Seraphon used to have a mercenary skink, cold blood riders. Yeah, Teeny Weeny. I mentioned him earlier. Teeny Weeny's riders were amazing. Like all the dogs who wore kits of the specific races were really great. The one that you mentioned of like the different skulls, like the dwarf skeleton and the Skaven skeleton and the elf skeleton and all those guys were fantastic. All of those old dogs of war stuff. Anything that riffs on those would be great. And notably, by the way, there was a Chaos Marauder mercenary company exactly like you're describing. Like what was his name? It was the Bear Man. Like it was a sort of werewolf type of
old
character.
Frick one. Yeah.
Who led a bunch of Chaos Marauders. So yeah.
I mean, what I would say is that but yeah, I don't think like Swift Talk aren't long for this world. I know I've been saying this, like I've been on a broken record for the last 3 years, but what we will likely find is that Swift Talk, as we know them, they're going to be like, surprise! We've actually been a part of this other elf faction that's been in the shadows the whole time, and they're all related. You know, like they're all part of the same like techless scheming. Like, oh, we're different factions. No, we're not. Surprise. Like, that's what's going to happen with the existing elf kits. Like, much like Marathi and her, like, surprise, Daughters of Cain is actually much bigger than we thought it was. We'll get something like that with the elves.
Okay.
And it'll save a handful of the modern kits, and it'll kill everything else out.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything, I don't agree with that happening with Lizardmen, like you mentioned. But I do think that that's completely realistic for the elves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like it's low hanging fruit. They have a throwaway god that they can attribute it to, Teclis, where they can be like, oh, these are actually Teclis's elves, and then still allow for the big release later of like what everybody wants with the angel elves.
Sure. Okay.
By the way, apparently in the lore, as a side note, bonus points here. Apparently in the lore for Forbidden Power, I saw in one of the reviews, Sigmar's like, so you gonna help Teclis? Gonna bring the elves out? And Teclis is like, nah. Like there's a specific exchange between the two of them where Sigmar's like, hey, like what help can you give? And Teclis is like, nah. Nope. You're gonna have to wait. Like it was like the most meta conversation between the two.
If it was actually filmed, it would have been him looking at the camera going, not yet. Or sorry, not yet. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. And completely unsurprising that Teclis would be unhelpful, as he is the worst. He's always been the worst. He will continue to be the worst. There is no release that will redeem him. Teclis is terrible, and he always has been. So there you go. So yeah,
it's like a Raceland that's still trying to be good.
he's just yeah, whatever. He's bad in so many ways. He is the classic example of somebody who thinks they're a lot smarter than they are and keeps getting one-ups by everybody around him who actually is intelligent. Yes, he's terrible. Okay. So any other mercenaries that we...
Nope.
Okay. I think that's... yeah, I think that's good. Oh, we didn't mention it. Hold on, I have one other thing. Do you think they do... Would they do any regular dwarves?
Nope.
No? I mean, a lot of those dispossessed kits are still valid,
Yep.
right?
I don't think that they're trying to sell kits. Like,
sure. No, it's not about selling kits. It's just they're not going to put out mercenary companies that have, things they don't have readily available in the market. Is all.
We have just trotted out like 10 mercenary companies that have like legs on them, and they're going to do like 5. Yeah, sure. 4 of them. Yeah. Like they'll do one for each Grand Alliance or something. Like, and these by the way are going to get spread out over a bunch of books. And so like you're going to see these in like the GHB, the ones that we got in the Firestorm Forbidden Power expansion that we're getting aren't going to be the same as the rest of them. Like all of it's just going to be different.
Sure. Okay. So that's that. Let's talk about points a little bit, shall we? Because that's I think something that people will want.
Sure.
Will want to talk about.
I like points.
Sure. So let's talk about. Obviously, we're not going to go unit by unit here. We'll do that when we do our big GHB review show. Yep. But let's general moves. Okay. So here's the first question. This is a very important question. Where is the line drawn from recent releases where there actually could still be points adjustments? So, in other words, I mean, like, okay, Slaanesh happened, Fire Slayers before that, and so on and so forth, right, as you go backwards. Where was the line drawn where it was too close to the book being done, where you're not going to, like, my argument would be you're not going to see anything in Slaanesh or Fire Slayers. I don't think those are too recent. So whatever's in those books, that's just, you're golden. We missed the window. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, normally I would say 3 months. Is the absolute bare minimum they could get turned around into like a stapled booklet like that with all the wrapping and then shipping across overseas. And that's even pushing it. Hold
on. Bob, those people are wrong. Whoever's telling you you're hearing raise Slaanesh points, that's insane. And those are people who don't no, do not believe them. That is insane. Slaanesh is already like a premium army. You're shopping at Saks Fifth Avenue when you buy Slaanesh. There is nothing cheap in that army. Get out of here. It is, I'm not even going to, and yes, I understand I'm super biased. Of course I am. But no, absolutely not. All right. Anyways, go ahead.
No, I think that Slaanesh is actually fairly well pointed.
Yes.
I don't know that there's a lot in Slaanesh that really needs to adjust. Moving backwards, I think that we'll probably see some Skaven and some FEC adjustments. I think that we'll probably see some Gits adjustments.
Well, that's the question. So there's really the question on the line. Because they have the pull-out book, and theoretically maybe that could be done separately, maybe it was ran later, right? Does Skaven and FEC actually get caught up in the points changes?
I mean, I really hope so. I don't know that they do, but I really hope so. That's what I'm going to say.
I agree. I think they will be. Let me say that. The nature of when they were published and when those books would have been locked and when they had to then lock the GHB, I think they will have... I think Skaven and FEC are the end, and that's where... And I actually think they will have points adjustments in GHB 19. Personal feeling. Who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. But my particular feeling is that's the line. Right after them is where the line is.
Well, I hope that Git's dropping points. I hope that they look at what they...
right? So.
Yep. I hope they look at what they did and they're like, nah, we made a mistake here.
I mean, if they didn't have Gits in there, then they would literally have nothing from 2019 changed in the book, right? Which would feel like that feels too far back.
Right. Yeah, we'll see, is what I would say. My hope is that we'll general points movements, like if we're talking about that. I would like to
imagine... General points movements, yeah, not.
I
Like
would like to
necessarily specific. We can
imagine.
touch on a few specific units if you want, but I'm not. Like I said, I'm not interested in
No.
blow by blowing it.
I would imagine that we're going to see a rollback of battalions.
Really, what makes you think that? Because I mean, battalions have not gotten incredibly cheaper in the new books they're in. Like that is to say, look at the Fire Slayer or the Slanesh.
The Fire
battalions.
Slayers
They're
were all
pretty
140
expensive.
to 160.
Yeah,
Like
and
every single
the
one.
Slanesh is like 120, 140, and 180. Right.
Oh, were
so
they?
same
Okay.
range. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a number of battalions that are like in the 200 to 300 point range that I think they're just like I think about like the Beastmen, right? The Beastmen had a bunch of these really expensive battalions.
Well, yeah, they had the Phantasmagoria and the Corn one. They were both 200.
Yep.
No, the Depraved Drove, the good one, was 150. The Slanesh one. The Slanesh and the Nurgle, I think, were 150. That's off the top of my head, so I don't remember exactly. But there were two of them that were 200 and two of them that were 150. I remember the Tzeentch and the Slanesh one because those were the good ones.
I think we'll see I hope that we'll see the battalions drift down, is what I would say, between 100 and 200.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably still a few that earn that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There are some of those old battalions that if they're not going to fix some of the abilities, like the sort of ability to force your entire army into it, turn it into a 1-drop, and give it pretty decent abilities.
Yep.
Those should probably still stay pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But I think in general, I agree with you. Most battalions, if they're just a part of your army and aren't doing a huge amount of stuff, like that is to say, if their abilities are pretty average, I think that in the current world, like 120 to 180 feels pretty right.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So I would hope that we would see some movement down there. I think that with the new like free summoning, the world that we've moved to, I think that there's probably going to be a reassessment of those armies. Like, I think that sometimes they were careful on how they deployed the costs around free summoning. And so I'm wondering if we'll see an adjustment with those. Like, things that have the highest chance of being adjusted are stuff that are associated with summoning.
Yeah, you mean going up, right? Like,
going up, right.
Because clearly their strategy was summoning, and you can feel this in Slanesh. Like I said, everything in Slanesh is at a premium cost because you have to also take into account summoning, right? Like our regular 5-wound like Herald spellcaster is 120 points, right? It's, compare that out to some other armies, 5+ save spellcasters with 5 wounds or whatever, right? And that's quite premium.
Nurgle is the same way, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
But I take your meaning.
Absolutely. I meant to the non-summoning armies.
Yeah. And so we'll see. I would expect those changes. I think that Nighthaunt is lined up to have a pretty significant points drop in a number of areas.
And especially in the stuff that you don't tend to see as much on the table, but that are like cool units and could be used. Like, I hope to see some movement on like Dreadblade Harrows or the what are their names?
Well,
the other
Harrows won't move probably because they're already only 100 points. So they're not expensive. But I could see some of the heroes dropping by 20. Like, there's a lot of heroes that are in the 140 range. I could see dropping down like.
What about the Harridans?
20. Harridans. Oh man, like, you are speaking my love language. Like, if we could get Harridans down to like 80 or even 70 per 5 instead of 90, because they're at 90.
Here's my question: does the Legion of Grief end up changing this thing?
And it might, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I hope they drop simply because I'm running Harridans in Legion of Grief.
Sure.
And so, like, I have my 30 sitting in a box right there. Like, I'm ready for Harridans to drop. If they are to drop, I'm ready for Hex Wraiths to drop. Like, these are the things that I would expect that I have not seen play. And I think that they have a lot of gas in the engine in the current world if their points came down just a little bit.
Like a hair, yeah.
Yeah, like at 20 points here, 10 points there, even 30 points for like some of those units. I think you'd really have some very competitive options out there.
What goes up? Let's play this game. What goes up?
Grim Gas Reapers.
Do they actually go up, or do they just change around in some way?
They go.
Like, that is to say, do they stop being available? Like,
Yeah,
it was basically an FAQ that brought them into the Legion originally. Now they're going to, like,
they had the option to remove them earlier. No, they just go up to like 160 with no discount.
Okay.
So 30 becomes 480 rather than the 360 that it currently is.
Sure.
And then that'll phase them right out of utility. Enlighten will go up.
Yep.
I think they're gonna bounce up probably reservedly, like maybe 20 points. I don't know that Enlighten are gonna jump up real high. Like they're really good, don't get me wrong, but they're also, I don't know, we'll see.
No, I think if you put them at 160 or 180, that's fine. I don't think you need to go over the top. By the way, I think Skyfires will meet them back in the middle.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Like, it wouldn't surprise me to see them both end up at 180. Right?
Yep. I think that.
So let's assume Skaven and FEC can get caught up in this. So Skaven points adjustments could happen. And if that's the case, then the things that would, in my mind, need to change in Skaven are, I think the Warp Seer gets more expensive, I don't know, in some capacity, probably like 300 or something. He's bargain basement right now. He's too cheap.
Yep.
He's not that big a deal. A lot of people complain about him because he is outrageously cheap, and I agree he is. But like, he doesn't actually win games a huge amount on his own. Like, he's a useful piece, but he's still a single guy. But putting him at 300 seems fair. Plague Monks need to go up probably considerably. They're way too good for their cost. Like, way too good for their cost. That's not just my Nurgle hatred happening. It's just, it's just a thing. I don't know that a huge amount of other stuff in Skaven needs significant points adjustments. I like I said, if I could, I would just snap my fingers and unmake Rat Trap. Like, if I had the Infinity Gauntlet and I had a snap, I would just unmake Rat Trap. I would turn it to dust. But, fix it in some way, which, by the way, could be just rewriting the War Scroll. They could put in one of those War Scroll updates. Remember when they did that for Thunderers or whatever?
I remember very well. And it was, in about the same time frame. It was a nice, 4 or 5 months later, after that thing dropped, that they remade the War Scroll.
So they could just do that again. So, they've already done it once. Just do it again.
Yeah, and I mean, most people hate it anyways. So, and it materializes a thing way more than Thunderers did. What else? I think that we will see. I think we'll see either some of the core Stormcast stuff go down.
We're doing things that are going up right now, Tom. Stay on target.
Or we'll see a number of the Sacrosanct units go down or go up.
Go up. Yeah, it gets balanced in some way. Sure.
Yeah, because there's just too big of a disparity right now between the Sacrosanct, particularly Sequitors, and the core Liberator stuff.
It could always be a little of both.
Yeah, right? And I think it's some mix of jostling will happen there with Stormcast. Yeah,
a couple of the Sacrosanct things could, because by the way, when we say that, it's not like all Sacrosanct are a problem. It's not like Castigators. People are screaming about that they need to go up or something, right?
No. I could see Castigators going down. I don't know if they'll do this, but I could see a world where they jigger with battle line rolls on some things.
Okay.
Not necessarily Stormcast, but I'm thinking about things like even in KO, we've talked about this before. A book's coming, obviously, but I could see them begin to prep some of those changes in battle line shifting, maybe not.
It's hard to say. What do you do with KO, knowing that there's probably a book for them not too far away? By the way, the same thing with Ironjaws, right? Do you actually even bother to put any points changes in there if they're getting a new book? And again, I'm standing behind Ironjaws getting a book this year. I'm standing behind that.
No, they've done that before. They've done the points changes, even though a book comes a week and a half later. In prior editions, they've done that. We saw that with Stormcast and the Stormcast release at the new edition change and the GHB, which was 2 weeks later last summer. The same thing. I think everything in Nighthaunt stayed the same, but we had points differences in the actual Stormcast books, a 20-point tweak on the Ballista. in like a 2-week period of releases. So I could see changes there. I could see Nighthaunt doing some battle line changes. I could see like Grimgas losing battle line, even in Nighthaunt.
Sure. Are offense eels going up?
Yeah, offense eels are probably going to go up 20 points. I mean, anything that's being spammed, witch elves are going to go up. You'll see hags go up. You'll see blood sisters go down. Or not the hunters, blood hunters, the shooters will likely go down.
The shooters, As
You'll probably see heart renders go up. Life takers will stay the same. You'll see some like tweaking, some moving around like that. Which
a lot of people have been pushing that hags should be like 120 or something. I think hags will definitely go up. They're obviously too cheap right now. But that being said, like
hags probably at 100 maybe.
Yeah, I would say at the end of at 80 or 100. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because like hags can also be handled through like just additional meta changes, right?
Right.
So like
shooting,
I think a lot of these
shooting does a great job of fixing hag problem.
Sure, the more the shooting that's in the meta, the more splash mortal wounds that are in the meta, the more stuff like
that. Yep.
So when you look at taking a microcosm like Idnath, because I want to address something that Halo just said, which I agree with, which is like you've got to be careful with some of these forces because they are relying on spam to sort of stay competitive or interesting or viable or whatever. Maybe. Right. And this is actually a tough thing to pull apart sometimes. Are Idnath competitive without eel spam? Maybe the answer to you is obviously no. I don't know that that's the answer or not. Maybe that's a clear-cut case. Maybe it's not. But some of these armies might be competitive without their spam. The spam is just the easy build that everyone plays. You see what I'm saying? So in that case,
like I think Stormcast fits this category. Like the Stormcast Sequitur problem, or Evocator. Like I think they're competitive outside of the spamming. I think that it's the more competitive option.
Right. So the question is the faction still viably competitive, whatever that means? Does it fall within that zone? If you just literally up the points in the one thing and disincentivize the spam, does it then just sort of fix itself? Or do you then have to go in and make other tweaks to then play with the rest of the viability, right?
Yeah.
Because my argument would be with Idnath, you do need to do more than just up the cost of the offense eels. I think you do. I think you do need to up the cost of the offense eels. And I think simultaneously you need to do something like bring the cost of the Reavers, the shooter, Namarti down. Yep. You need to bring the cost
of the shooters need to go down to 120.
The wave rider guys down.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. They need to go down to 360 and 400 or something.
Just they need to go down into that range. There needs to be more tweaks with them to play around with what's actually sort of valid there. By the way, I think the same thing's true in beasts probably, and that's going to be a tough pill to swallow because beasts are really interesting, right? They already have some of the bargain basement cheapest units when you look at beasts, right? You look at Bestigors and what you get out of them for 120 or whatever, or something like that, or Dragon Ogres for 140, right? To the same cost as pigs. Yeah. And you're like, can you really legitimately push those lower? Yeah. But it's pretty much like a melee spam, low defense, run across the table and die army, right? Yeah. So what is the answer there? If you push up Enlightened, their actual hammer, what do you have to do to then make it so the force still remains competitive? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Bestigor, for example, are still great offensive missiles. Just people aren't using them because Enlightened are better. And so I don't know. I mean, I think we'll see. It'll be interesting. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to my point is a lot of people say this stuff. Like everybody has an opinion about this, right?
Sure.
Everybody has an opinion of well, this thing just needs to go up 20 points or this thing just needs to come down 40. I only raise this concern to say, well, there's a lot actually going on here, right? You have to be somewhat careful when you make these moves that you're not injuring the rest of the faction. And you need to be holistically, and you need to view these things holistically, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
Totally. Yep.
Now, as far as FEC goes, let me tell you right now, I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of the big gribbly mounted dudes go up in cost some. Like one of the great crimes right now in my mind is that the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is cheaper than the Mega Boss on Maw Crusher. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. Like at bare mins, like he should be sitting with the Vampire Lord at 440.
Yeah, and again, I'm not a big fan of doing cross army comparisons. A lot of people do that, what I just did, right?
Yeah.
And they say, well, this army's getting this for 120, and this other similar unit in this other army is 160, and that's not fair. But that's a horse crap comparison.
No, you don't.
You can't. You can't. I know everybody wants to do it. We all want to go. Army A gets something for 120, hence Army B should get something for 120. But that's junk. Like you can't do that in the void. What I just did. I was being a bit facetious because the reality is that when you're looking at the points of an army, you have to think about it in terms of the broad army. Beasts of Chaos should have stuff like Bestigors cheaper than almost anybody else because that's their trick. They're a low defense offense, run across the table and smash you army, right? That's what they've got. That's their whole thing, right? Now I was making the FEC Ironjawz comparison as arguably they're both very melee focused armies, right? They don't rely on any shooting. They both have weak-ish magic phases, although FEC has a better magic phase. But neither of them are like dominating the magic phase, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a semi-similar comparison. But at the same time, FEC have summoning and stuff like that, so they have a deeper resource pool to pull from.
Yep.
And so I think when you're thinking about points, doing those cross army comparisons gets really dangerous really fast.
Sure.
But arguably people like Beasts and people like Ironjawz should have the cheapest melee units in the game because they have the least else going on.
Right.
And by the way, I'm okay with that. That's not a bad thing. I'm super down for like an army having a focused play that this is all it does. It only plays in like 1.5 phases in the game. Cool. If that's what it's about, okay. Like, great. That's its thing. It dominates that one phase. I am perfectly fine with Ironjawz dunking on everybody in that phase and having not much else to do, but they don't. They don't right now, is my point, right?
Yeah. So, the keepers come rolling in and they're like, you get to fight last.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's fun. But yeah, let's see. Who else?
I get to play with my toys and you don't get to play with yours.
You would be amazed how often you fail that 4-up. Like, you fail it about 50% of the time.
Or a 2-up. Or a 2-up on your keepers.
Miracle of Miracles, I didn't fail the 2-up at all. She pulled it off every round.
Weird.
Every combat.
Yeah. Statistically, however, not that unusual.
Well,
I mean, take 6 turns to fail one.
It doesn't. You have two rolls around, right? About a round. Now, I will say, I also had the Rod of Misrule, which is like this magic item in Invaders where if you roll a 1, you give a command point to your enemy. And out of 4 turns, I gave 2 command points to my opponent. So I did manage to screw that up twice. So, there you go.
Why not?
That one apparently. But I by the way, quick Slanesh update from last week from the Mega Show. I am all about Invaders now. I turned upside down after playing with Invaders just once. I was like, nope, this is great. I love everything about this. Invaders for life. I'll probably still do Seekers occasionally, but Pretenders are straight out. Pretenders is now on the bottom. Invaders is probably number 1, and Seekers is number 2. There you go. All I'm saying is it's the command point generation engine you can get out of Invaders means everybody piles in twice all the time, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So Anyway,
doubling the effectiveness on things like Keepers is kind of a big deal.
It's kind of a big deal. It helps in the whole depravity generation thing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, anybody else with like Seraphon are getting a book? I've got to imagine you'll see it. Yeah. So like they're just totally up.
Seraphon, Sylvaneth are getting books. Like I said, KO are going to get a book, but I don't know how quickly on the heels of the GHB. We had heard that it was later this summer, but who knows? Because obviously, like with the delay that we currently have, it could push other things back. Slave to Darkness, Ever Chosen. Do we think that any new allegiances are going to be in here?
Let's move to allegiance. Let's talk about allegiance. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, the whole battle tome question raises a lot of challenge with points, right? Because it's like, well, do they really do much with BCR, or do they just give BCR a new book? That kind of thing, right? Which, or do we solve it here? So this is a good point to transition into the allegiance, right?
Yep.
We've got a lot of things we just mentioned, and we cleared a lot of space out in the book, right?
Yep.
So
if I'm the design team,
mm-hmm.
I solve it with one publication.
Well, and also by the by, they've shown that like they'll print a an allegiance in the GHB and then put out a book not that long after it.
They did it like 3 times this year, 4 times.
Right.
Like this year, if you go through half of the things that were in last year's GHB as an allegiance, got new books. Like, yeah. And I even called that. Do you remember this? Where I said maybe the allegiances are roadmaps to what they're going to publish.
And that hasn't been true. Like, that's the thing. You said that, but that's not true. There's a ton in there that haven't been published. And
it's true, but like half of them have.
And if you go back to that show and you see what I say, my response to you then was my response to you now, which is like, yes, you're correct. It's probably about half. So flip a coin. That's not a roadmap. That's just flipping a coin. That doesn't help at all. Like, sure. Am I still there? Are you still there?
Are.
Okay.
I'm counting.
Gotcha. Your face was remarkably still for a moment, and I was like, "Wait, did my camera cut out? What happened here?"
I'm counting. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah. So it's not half. But a lot of them got books this year.
I understand. And my point is, even if it is half, it's not helpful. If they went 1 for 1, I'd be like, "Yep, I agree."
I mean, what I would say is this: like, if they could do 2 pages per faction, which the allegiance, which they show they can. They can get items and prayers and command traits and all the everything in 2 pages. They do that with the Lethis faction. Then I think that like they take 40 of these pages, right? And they just fill out the rest of the boxes.
Okay, so who's in here? Start naming names.
Let me go through the
Well, so let's start here. Anybody who's in there now and hasn't yet had a book, I argue stays. Okay?
Yes. I don't think that so you think like Iron Jaws will still stay?
Yep, I do. Regardless of when they get their book, which could be like 2 months after the GHB.
Okay.
Yes, I think they stay. I think anybody who's in there, including like Seraphon, same thing. Right? Like they have one of those big build outs too. And I think they'll have a book not long after, but I still think they'll stay in there. Yes. Because the problem is if they remove them, people will freak. It's just worth the 2 pages. Okay. Yep. Even if you know you've got a book coming 2 months, 3 months, 4 months afterward, it's worth the 2 pages because otherwise people lose their minds. So it's just, you keep them. They are very aware of the negative psychological utility.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So Slaves to Darkness. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Like all those stay, like Slaves, Darklings, Iron Jaws, Seraphon.
Yeah, I'm going through the list. Like, so Slaves are the only chaos thing that need, right?
Yep.
Like technically Ever Chosen as well, but I don't think that they'll add an Ever Chosen for 2 months. So it'll be Slaves. Death doesn't need anything. Looking through Death's lineup. For Destruction, we'll see Beastclaw Raiders. Bone Splitters.
I agree. You put BCR in here. You put BCR and Gutbusters both in here in this book. Yes.
Yep. And Bone Splitters.
Separate, by the way, not as one. Those are 2 separate allegiances.
Yep.
And you redo them like and you give them a standard like they should just move to the 2-page spread. Okay.
Yep. Get Mob, I think, will evaporate this year. I think Get Mob will be removed from the book. I think Greenskins, I think the charts will literally just disappear.
Sure.
for Get Mob and Greenskins. So what have I said? So in Destruction, you have Beast Claw Raiders, you have Bone Splittas, you have Gut Busters. So we're up to 4 allegiances now. There's your 4. And then we've basically went through all the Grand Alliances but Order, and we already have 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you'll see Darkling Covens.
Of course, they get to stay.
Yep, they'll stay. I think that you see Devoted.
Ironjaw still stays too. I mentioned that before.
Right? Oh yeah. Sorry, Ironjaw. So it's 5. So 5 before 6 with Darkening Covens. 7 with Devoted of Sigmar.
Okay, you're making a Devoted of Sigmar call, huh?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say maybe Devoted of Sigmar.
Obviously, free people stay.
Free people stay. Dispossessed. We're up to 9. I think that we'll see. I'm debating on the elves right now. Maybe Eldritch Council.
They like it. It's almost big enough, but it doesn't.
Yep. It only has 1 battle line unit that like those can't be bought in boxes of 10. Like
do they actually go put Order Draconis in here since people have done it?
Yeah, I mean I think so. So we're up to that's 5. That was 9. If they do, let's say they do Eldritch Council 10, maybe. I mean maybe they just go with no. Maybe they go with the United Elves even in this. Like it wouldn't take a lot, right? They just you rejigger all of where the scrolls sit.
Okay.
And create a new keyword, right? They're not published anywhere. They're just on the actual app.
Sure. Yeah, you mean physically published, right?
Yeah. I don't know. For me, if I were them, I would be inclined to just with a keystroke. If things are gonna you can leave Phoenix Temple as separate, but for the small Dangler Elf factions, Eldritch Council, Order Draconis,
right?
Lion Rangers.
You're saying that those become the thing we've talked about before, where you're doing
Yep.
As somebody just said in the comments, Elves of the Free Cities or something like that.
Yep. And you can leave Phoenix Temple in or out. It doesn't matter, right? Because it can stand on its own well enough, I guess. But I mean, it could be rolled in.
Obviously, Wanderers, by the way, keep their own unique allegiance.
Yep. Maybe Scourge Privateers show up here. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I don't know, but Scourge. I think Scourge are their own thing.
I think Swift Talk. If they do that roll together, I think Swift Talk die. And so the only units that actually get ported in are the Sky Cutters, Sky Warden, Shadow Warrior, and then you get the Foot Hero, the Spire Guard Foot Hero, finally rolled back in as its own new scroll. Because
if I was going to say this, somebody just mentioned in the comments, but I was going to say it too. The Phoenix one is the one that could actually remain on its own,
right? And that's what I said. Yep, yeah. And that's what I said. That one may not be rolled in, but I could see everything else, basically everything else, getting rolled together.
Sure.
And it just solves so many problems. It solves I love Swift Talk, okay, but here's the reality: 90% of the units in it can't be purchased right now.
Sure.
And they've just demonstrated that when that happens, those things get cut. Yes, they're plastic, but they've also said they can't separate out those elf units from the rest of the Island of Blood Sprues.
Right.
The way that they made them, they're not being separated. They're stuck the way that they are. And maybe Swordmasters disappear. I hate to say this. If the Arcane, the Eldritch Council gets rolled in, because right now Swordmasters are all in metal. They're in the 5.
Unless you have the plastic Island of Blood Swordmasters, because that's
right,
the Poison Wind Mortar. They didn't, and they were all mixed up with Escaping on the Sprue.
Yeah, right. And so there's just no way to get at those things anymore. The Reavers, the Wonderful Archer, the Horsemen are only on those sprues.
Mm-hmm.
All of that just
makes me glad I picked up 3 sets of those things when they were going on style cheap.
Yeah, I have 30 of them.
You know, yeah, we're not saying we don't love Swordmasters. We're saying like it might.
I
Like,
love
that,
them. I would like the Swift Talk agent has multiple times shown up as a possibility for my yearly army of like, do I do it this year? Like, do I pull the trigger and make
is
this my
this the
army?
year of Swift
Yes.
Talk agents? The answer
I
has
mean,
been
what
no.
no, exactly. Like, what I'll say is this: like, if they survive this year, just saying. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
we're in it. Like, or if they get rolled together, like, heaven forbid, they actually like would get rolled together in their current format with some other stuff. Like,
No, I think that's
they
exactly
can
right.
also.
Elves of the Free Cities, the big swing. That's what it should be. Like, stop having 5 different dangler elf factions for goodness
Right,
sake.
because all they're doing is stopping people from playing what like those with those toys.
Right. So like, and the solution is so simple: leave Phoenix Temple separate as part of like the Phoenicium or whatever. Right. Bring in its own thing, by the way. They get their own allegiance, and it's literally the Phoenicium allegiance, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like you give them the Phoenician Free Cities allegiance or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you have the Elves of the Free Cities that's like Eldritch Council and Order Draconis and blah, 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 blah. All that other dangler elf crap, high elf crap that makes sense. And that's one separate thing. You bring in Scourge Privateers, and they're the other ones to then balance against the Darkling Covens. And now you've basically got all your old Dark Elves in some kind of pseudo-playable state, right? Because all the Murder Elves became part of Doc. You've got, you know, Darkling's been Darkling for 3 years now or whatever. And then you actually have the Privateers having a thing, and you're good to go. Like, there you go. Elves are, and Wanderers stay Wanderers because they're just Wanderers and they are what they are. It's fine.
Yeah, like the only question I would have is like, do they move the keywords on the War Scrolls for like Sisters of the Watch, which are the old Sisters of Avalorn that moved over to Wanderers that nobody fields? Like, do those find a home back in the High Elf kits, or does it remain a dual kit, which is like 2 different allegiances?
Okay, let's take a little bit of a higher swing here. Okay, and I want to. This is something I was going to go on that Hey Woj just opened the door for.
Yep.
We mentioned earlier on with Forbidden Power that they have these 2 new allegiances, right? Like Lethis and the Breathe. Okay. We've got space here. Do we just do some new narrative factions like they did there?
Maybe.
Where we take the idea of Firestorm.
Like, yes,
and
you make a Hammerhall and a Phoenicium and a whatever. And let
me tell you a question that got asked. So this wasn't widely reported because this was just Q&A at Warhammer Fest.
Yeah.
Okay. In the rules question, in the rules Q&A session, they had somebody directly ask the questions. They said, "Hey, I really liked Firestorm. I thought those were cool. Are you guys going to do some allegiance abilities in the style of Firestorm again? Do you, are you gonna explore something like that again of having like narratively driven allegiance stuff?" And the direct answer was yes, we are going to do that.
Right, and like certainly Forbidden Power does that, but maybe that's the answer. Maybe like we were thinking too small in these allegiances where we just rattled off a bunch. And for this order stuff, maybe they fix all the order problems.
Right.
By like 7 cities, like 6 cities or whatever of these collections. And so they take the Phoenicium, the kernel of the idea that was the Phoenicium, and they just blow that out to be like a 2-page spread with its own spells and command traits and items and all that. And now they've supported Phoenix Temple and Fire Slayers and all the things that were in the Phoenicium.
Right, and by the way, you could have these be very discreet or very broad, right? Because some of them could be more like Firestorm, where it's effectively 7 different factions. There's elves and dwarves and stormcast and humans, and they're all kind of rolled together, and that's fine. Some of them could be structured like that, and some of these could be very tight, right? Some of it could be like the Phoenicium or something, where it's just a couple of different elf factions. And I actually love this idea.
Well, the Phoenix, like to be clear, the Phoenicium was actually very broad. Like, or like it wasn't super broad.
Is just I'm saying your new Phoenicium you just pitched, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying you could go either direction. I understand original Phoenicium and Firestorm was much more broad. I'm arguing that you could go both directions. And to me, it's way more interesting than just having
the elf faction and the human faction and the
yes, it's actually delivering on the promise of the Mortal Realms, of doing this stuff in a new way. Like, can we please finally bury the hard racial division lines of old Warhammer Fantasy Battle.
Why do we
Like,
have to be so racist?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, there's a lot of potential here. Like, Order has gotten together in a way unprecedented in the old world. All these lines have blurred in interesting ways. The people all live together. We can have. I have no problem with like ultra specific factions, KO and Iron Jaws and stuff like that. I think those are great. I want to keep seeing ultra specific, very tightly concepted factions. I like those. Please keep making more of those. Also, by the by, let's see some very broad, interesting factions where we make the best possible use of all of the legacy figs and armies that are out there. This isn't a mutually exclusive thing. We can be like the Taco Girl. We can just do both. Right. And then we're actually delivering on the narrative of the Mortal Realms.
The GHB and these narrative supplements become the perfect place to do these combined factions. Yeah. You know, that don't need big book support. They need a page of fluff or whatever, you know, a page of background, some art, and then 2 pages of crunch, right? Of actual rules text.
Yeah. And we know we gained like 40 pages here. That's a lot of space to do this kind of crap with.
Right. Yeah, like imagine each one of the cities was 4 pages, where you got a page of lore, an art piece, associated with that city, the cityscape, the heraldry, the whatever. And then you get 2 pages of like charts and rules text around it. Sure. Done. And that would easily solve a number of the problems here, is what I would say.
Yeah. You suddenly allow so many old collections to come back to the table, right? Because there's been this huge chunk of Order that really people haven't felt like they can play. And again, by the by, this is something they are keenly aware of. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned
my elves have not been painted because of this.
Well, like this isn't something, they're not deaf to this, or because this was directly said in one of the previews of one of the things that we have heard people say. Like I'm paraphrasing, but I'm going to try to paraphrase as close as possible. Yeah. And so, you know, what they directly said was one of the things we have directly heard people say is that they have felt that some part of what's holding Age of Sigmar back or holding them back from getting into the game or from enjoying it as much as they could is the fact that they have armies that they feel like they can't use because they're not as supported as some of the other forces. Okay. Totally makes sense. They then let's fix that. Let's fix that all in one book, right? Where we can do that. Right. And we don't have to have just elves together or something like that. But we can have both. Yep. Right? We can do all of that stuff and it becomes very interesting.
One of the things you could do the Grungy United Alliance thing in 4 pages. You know, where you roll together all your dwarves and they have their own set of rules and they get this set of benefits and end of the story.
Yes, exactly what I was going to say. These don't need to be mutually exclusive. Right? Like my point being is you can have more when this world becomes super interesting to me. Okay? Is when you have narratively driven options to play your forces in multiple ways. In other words, like take the Lethis thing, for example, right? Where you could have just Stormcast, or you could have Stormcast and the Lethis thing, right? In that. You can have your ghosty boys as Nighthaunt or as this combined legion. When you start not just having one way to play your army, but multiple ways to play your army, multiple allegiances you can dictate yourselves to, besides just, you know, the Grand Alliance that was always there, right? The sort of parent alliance. Now all of a sudden, and by the way, have those other ones be largely narratively driven in some way that really seats them in the world, right?
Right.
Wow, does that open some doors? Like that is super cool. And suddenly, because the awesome thing about that is that's just value for your money. Mm-hmm. That army you bought, it's suddenly not just one army anymore. It's what Chaos has been enjoying for years.
Right. Chaos is like, what's wrong here, guys?
Right. Where when you get a Chaos thing, you know, you buy a Chaos Warrior, he can be used in like 5 different armies. Or you buy a Nurgle thing and it can fit in like 3 different armies.
And 2 different games. So, 3 different games.
Right.
Warhammer.
So like that's just more value. That's just more bang for your buck.
Right.
So yeah, 100%. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Okay.
that's the easy answer for some of the material development moving forward.
Yep. All right, let's talk about these 1K games.
Yeah.
So we know the way that they seem to describe it, it's a different but adjacent rule set.
Yep.
Is how they seem to describe it. It seems to be clearly implying that it's played on a smaller board.
Yep.
Okay. What else changes here? What does this look like, Tom? When you strap on your tinfoil hat, what does this look like? Because it's clearly just not going to be, match play at 1K. What else is different here? Besides, and probably it's on like a 3 foot by, some smaller board or something, right?
3x3 instead of or something. I don't know. Okay, sure. I'll bite. Either no named characters.
Sure.
Or no units over 400 points.
All right.
No. I don't know if I want to say no units. No heroes. No, maybe heroes or leaders over 400 points.
So you could have big monsters that are just monsters if that exists, right?
Right. Or if
you could have a magma dragon, but you can't have a
maybe
Archeon or something.
Or maybe it's no units over 400. So they pare it down.
Like, are you saying even like
I don't know.
Even combined units? Okay. So
maybe
smaller unit count.
So, yeah.
Forcing you to be more divergent in your number of forces, right? You can't do the old Nagash 2 units of direwolves and a corpse cart.
Right. Because I think the idea here, if they were to do this, would be to say like this is the vanguard of the army, not the general and his escort. Like this is the advance, like the scouting force of a larger army. It's not like an entire contingent of 20 sequitors. Right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you could play with. So there's been a couple of people in the comments that I want to call out for getting rid of summoning, or I think like that could be just a thing, right? At 1K, they could severely limit summoning in some fashion.
Yeah.
It could either be you jettison it, or because some armies seem to have that as like a major component. It could be a hard cap on it, right? Like you can't summon more than another X percentage onto the table, or another X hundred points, right? Whatever. Could be something like that.
Or it could be something like you can never have more than 1,000 points total in your control.
That would be really running calculations like that become really hard, right? Because then you have to constantly be kind of keeping track. That's a bit cumbersome. Whereas if you say you can't summon more than another 200 points, well, okay, I know if I did that or not, right? I put a unit on the table, it was this much. So just easier math. So that could be a thing they adjust. Obviously they'll have specific battle plans for it, right? They'll have different sort of battle plans that actually speak to the table size, the game size, the goals, what you're able to accomplish. I think they will use a lot of the same restrictions that are already in match play. Like that is, say you will see a toned down number of leaders and war machines or artillery, and behemoths, that kind of stuff, right? What about battalions? Do they just say like no battalions?
Maybe.
They tend to self-regulate, right? Often at 1,000 points, a
just
battalion is not a great investment.
Right.
But do they just like get rid of them?
Maybe.
Could be an interesting way to go. I like your idea of putting a hard cap on sort of the units. They could even go to like everything gets bought at its min unit size. Right? So like when you buy Liberators or Sequitors or something, you get 5. And you can't take them in higher groups.
You only ever get 5. Sure.
Right. You just have to buy another unit of them. Right?
Yep.
Like that could be like if you really want to force diversity, that could be an interesting way to go about it. I think that combined with like different scenarios and a smaller game board would actually make the game much more interesting. Because the challenge always in a 1K game is when somebody does show up with Nagash. Right?
Or
like
Marathi.
that, or Marathi or something like that. That's just like, okay, fine.
Full
You know,
disclosure, I took Marathi to a 1,000-point tournament at Akon, so like I'm that guy.
you are
But,
that guy.
I am that guy. Took second.
Anything else you think that they would change at that game size or add in?
No, I mean, it would change it too much to talk about limiting summoning. What if they only allowed Grand Alliance armies? That would kill summoning completely. Like that would basically
It
summoning.
would, but it would also like be really unfun, right? Because people like, you got your book, you want to use the toys in your book.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Grand Alliance. It's called Streets of Death, right?
Well, it's not. No, that's a separate thing.
Okay.
There is Streets of Death is a separate like narrative thing where it's just about city fighting.
Okay. So here you go. 1,000 points.
The actual name of this is Meeting Engagements. That is the official name of this.
1,000 points. Maybe you're only allowed the. I mean, this is stretching it. Probably not true, but maybe you're only allowed the Grand Alliance rules, but there are no battle line requirements. The reason why I say that is like so that you can do destruction, and you just put whatever toys you want of your 1,000 points on the table.
Sure. No, I mean, too much. Too much.
I mean, you'd finally get that 5 giant army.
Sure. Hey, look, I would love. By the way, there's another allegiance. There we go. Yes, we finally opened the door to more behemoths than 4 with Crystal Gore and with your dumb whatever it's called, Lofnir or whatever in there. So new allegiance, GHB 19, the giant army, the Ale Guzzlers. It's coming. Regular Ale Guzzler Gargants become battle line. Done and dusted. This is happening. No cap on behemoths whatsoever, as long as you do not have any unit in your army other than Ale Guzzlers. Some kind of giants, right? So you can get them and then the 4 troll giants. Boom.
But you don't ever get it. You don't have a hero, so you don't actually ever get.
No. You just get to make one of your heroes. No, the allegiance allows you to turn one of your giants into a hero. By the way, this isn't weird tech. Anybody who's read the Imperial Knights book in 40k knows exactly what this is. Because when you play an Imperial Knight army in 40k, you don't. Well, I mean, you do now, but for a long time you didn't really have named character knights. But you could take one. You took one of them, and it became a character. It became a named dude. He got an extra thing. It was a special character knight. Same thing here. And giants are the Imperial Knights of AOS. That's all I'm saying. Like it's a very similar thing, right?
Sure.
So done and dusted. There you go.
Maybe.
That allegiance is happening. No cap on behemoths. I'm planting a flag right now. There it is. Okay, back to the 1K thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all these are possibilities. And by the way, just to answer the question, Heywo said, well, like, why is Lodon a problem at 1K? Like, with the named character problem?
Sure.
And the answer is because if these are, like, engagements, these are your forward forces, and you don't put the named heroes in these forward forces.
They're not in the vanguards, yeah.
The
answer is he's not competitively. The answer is just that he gets swept up in the other things we're trying to fix.
Like, he's in, like, those named characters are with the bodies of forces to protect them. That's why. Like, the whole Vanguard, and you could make an argument to say, like, this is why it's always min-sized forces. Because you don't have large forces here. You don't have battalions. Those things are for the larger organized forces. Sure. Not these, like, these forward position stuff.
All right. Good. No, I like that. That's what 1K looks like. Okay, so final thing
in our world. And if it's not, rules variant incoming.
Sure. Here we go.
Like an event format.
Absolutely. All right, so next up, if I were Volturnus, I'd send Lotan out to die out of mercy.
I mean, you got a point.
Oh, well said, Heywo. All right, so, okay. Let's talk about the new battle plans. Let's end on this. Okay.
What new battle plans?
Well, we know there's new battle plans.
Not for 2K.
Well, they said new battle plans. That's on the list. Okay.
Right, but they also said that they're adding no new match play battle plans in one of the interviews in the new GHB.
Where did they say that? Because on the spoil thing, it says match play won't just be receiving new battle plans. Like that's one of the things they
it was
say.
one of the interviews or something saying that they're not changing the battle plans. They're adding other things, but the battle plans aren't actually changing in the new GHB. I could swear I read that somewhere, like in one of the interviews, in one of the conversations.
Well, okay, so that can be one of your predictions. That's fine. Sure. If they do add new ones, as it says on the thing, and all of those new ones aren't for the 1K, because by the way, it could just be those are the new 1K ones, which would be fine. So there's the question: are we going to get new standard, match play existing battle plans, or are we sticking with the 18?
I think that we will get new 1K battle plans.
You don't think we have any new traditional match play battle plans?
I don't. I think we'll have the 18.
Okay.
I think that some of them could receive tweaks with how the wording, how the claim stuff goes.
Changing some stuff in like Scorched Earth and Better Part of Valor. Moving some objectives around or things like that. Sure.
I would love like this may be too much of a simple change, but a change something like this. A unit, units of one model, count their wounds in models or whatever.
For whom?
For claiming objectives.
You're saying for everybody?
Sure.
All the time in every battle plan?
Sure.
That's
or something.
Insanity.
Maybe it is. Like I think that some of the more elite armies, like they really, really do struggle in competitive play. Like Stormcast and Gutbusters, and like I think that armies that have low model counts are just simply on their back foot in a lot of these scenarios. They just are. Like you can zone out sometimes.
Giving that to everybody is insane.
And by the way,
hurt more than you help.
By the way, Dan, I'm not, because what I didn't say is every unit counts as its wounds for claiming.
You're talking about units of one. I get it.
Units of one. So like heroes or heroes and
it's still too much. Like you don't. Everybody doesn't need that. You need to give that to like BCR. Like that should absolutely be the BCR allegiance ability. They should have the same thing that Custodes have, right? Basically in 40K, where they can roll in with 3 dudes. Like they have sort of this weird thing where like if 3 of theirs can take it from anybody, as long as it's not more battle line, and 3 of their battle line equivalent or whatever can take it from anybody. Like that's the sort of thing that they need. Like that makes perfect sense for BCR. And again, this is tech that already exists in 40K. It's super easy to port in. And it makes sense for their army because their army's like ultra elite, right? Where you can literally have an army of 10 figs. That could very well be your army in BCR, right? Stormcast don't need this. All right, they're fine.
I mean, they are now, while they can take blocks of 20 Sequiturs.
I'm sure Stormcast will be fine for the foreseeable future because they've developed such a deep bench. Yes, maybe Sekis go up, then other stuff will go down, and they'll have a different thing. Their bench is just too deep. For the same reason Skaven will always survive points adjustments, you'd have to just completely bust the faction to make them unplayable, right?
Well,
because it's too big.
I'll say this: there are armies that are simply not viable because of bodies. Like in the highest levels of competitive play. Like the reality is that what ends up happening is a number of forces just simply get weeded out because they can't actually put bodies on the table.
It's not many. And it's not Stormcast. I mean, I'm not saying Stormcast might not need a little bit of adjustment, but it's not them. Like, I don't know. BCR is in there. Sure. Absolutely.
Sure.
But, like, beyond that, that's a very black and white, clear-cut example. Yep, 100%. They have the problem you're describing. Like, absolutely true. No pushback whatsoever. But do even like normal gutbusters have that problem? Probably not. 12 ogre bulls is pretty good. Yeah, it's only 12 bodies, but they reduce the number of bodies they're up against in the enemy force pretty fast usually. You know, like, is that what they need, or do they just need like some allegiance abilities that aren't crap? Right, an actual like thing to do as a. Do they need to just be a functional army?
I mean, yeah, like I hear that, but then I also recognize like teleporting a block of 20 skinks out 9 inches and drifting into onto an objective. Like there are some armies that just can do nothing against that.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I mean, here's what I'll say. Let's say we do get a couple new battle plans. All right.
Okay.
And by the way, somebody corrected my 18 to say 20 because they're counting the 2 in malign sorcery. I wish those 2 in malign sorcery were commonly used. I think they're awesome, but tournaments don't tend to use them. Tournaments tend to think of it as 18.
Yeah.
Let's assume we had a couple new ones. Here's the thing. If we're going to add a couple new ones, I don't think we need anything more in the what I'll call quote unquote generic battle plans. What I like about battle plans is I like battle plans that are themselves somewhat gatekeepers to certain armies or to certain builds or certain things, right?
Yep.
So I like things like 3 places of power or total commitment or stuff like that. I love Knife to the Heart famously is one of my favorite scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Because Knife to the Heart is a really hard scenario to get a major on. Total commitment screws people who rely on ambush mechanics, right? I like these sorts of scenarios existing.
Yep.
So if we added a couple scenarios to deal with sort of the current world, what are the things that you what might those scenarios do? I have one. You ready?
Okay.
I don't know exactly what the scenario is called. Doesn't matter. We can structure it with like you can come up with a name later. But I'm going to call it the summoning interference scenario.
Sure.
Okay. Every time you're going to put a new unit on the table from any kind of summoning thing, all right?
Yep.
You roll a die, and they only actually show up on like a 2-up or a 3-up or something like that. Probably nothing worse. Even a 2-up would be crushing.
I mean, well, let me just say it this way. That's not a scenario.
It's a realm rule.
It's a realm rule. That's exactly right.
Could be that too. I'm just, whatever.
Because like we don't have like anti-shooting scenarios, right?
No, but we do have anti-ambush scenarios, and we have forced you to have wizard scenarios. So the question is summoning, where does it sit as a mechanical level? I'm not sure you can draw a bright line between the two things you just described.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But like we don't have scenarios that say like, the maximum range of all attacks and stuff like that is 12 inches on this scenario.
Yeah, sure. I don't disagree with that. And some of these could be like that too. I just think that would be a neat thing to do, right? Like that, even on a 2-up, it would that's actually incredibly scary to an army that relies on summoning, right? The fact that 16% of your summons don't land. That sounds like almost nothing, but it's
until you lose that keeper after you spend all that depravity.
Yeah, because I'm arguing that if you had to spend resources, those resources are still gone, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Boy, you use Alariel's one-time summon and you roll that 1.
Yep.
Yeah, it could be a realm rule as well. It's just like I was trying to think of what would I want new scenarios to actually do. What do I want them to put pressure on, right?
Right. On what kind of builds does it flip the optimization incentive structure?
Sure.
And so like I agree, summoning would be one of those. I would argue like any time that units are being set up, that would be
so like something that stops teleporting in the same way would be another way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like the Night Haunt jumping around, the Seraphon teleporting, the pick up a unit and move it across the table from Vexilors or whatever. Like all of those things, anything that would put pressure on that type of activity.
Yeah. Tau, Mr. Bond, how embarrassing. I cast a jump and put my 30 orc boys behind your lines. Wah, Mr. Bond. Wah. Yeah, I mean the like teleporting is obviously a very powerful mechanic in the current game, and it very much does create sort of a haves and have-nots. Now,
Yeah.
you know, the boatman is you know stopping that to some degree because he's giving everybody some kind of minor ability to scoot around like that.
For 80 points in a wizard.
I thought he was 60 points.
He's 60. Sorry, the bridge is 80.
Okay. And the boatman's the interesting one because the boatman, like, whatever. We'll talk about this when we talk about forbidden power. But
Yep.
anyway, yeah, like stopping something that interferes with teleporting in that way as a scenario sounds pretty cool. I dig that. And by the way, if you really wanted to make it scenario driven, it could then play with the objectives. Where like it's normally on a 3+, you can't reset up teleporting units. If you control one of the objectives, you push it to a 2+. If you control 2 of the objectives, you push it to you can teleport now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Or how about this one? The objectives are moving around a la relocation orb, and teleporting, setting up near one pushes it a different direction.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So that, like, by teleporting into an area, you inherently move the objectives
Oh,
away
see,
from
that's super clever. No, I like where you're at there, Tom. My way was very hard, right? Like, I was using a hard incentive where I was actually just stopping teleportation. Your way is actually super clever. I enjoy that. Where, like, if you set up a unit,
it pushes the objectives.
The objective immediately moves away from the unit. Yeah.
And you
so
like
you
create a
can't
grid
use setups
structure
to claim objectives. Yeah, that's cool. That's
so
a good idea.
You could use the grid structure of relocation orb or something like that. And then what you could do, like you wouldn't use the same one, but you'd use a similar system. Think about like 6 objectives, and then basically like whatever one. And maybe you let the opponent move it along the axes.
Sure. Yeah,
if rather
you set
than
up
you,
near it, the opponent gets to move the objective. Yeah.
Right. But what you could do if you were clever is you could actually like do it in such a way that you could use it to manipulate the actual objective structure by forcing them to make decisions, like play 4D chess here, and not try to actually teleport onto the objectives, but use it to push the objectives where you want them to be.
Yes, Martin Orlando just said it's literally about chasing a balloon. Yeah, kind of. Where you grab at the balloon and it bounces and flies away from you.
Yes.
I love the idea of like you set up or teleport. You trigger the setup of a unit near the objective, and the opponent gets to move the objective some distance, right, wherever they want. That's super cool, right? Because then you by you taking the advantage of being able to put a unit wherever you want, you're handing your opponent the advantage of better positioning the objective. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's a neat idea. Oh, there you go. G-Dubs, heads up on this one. That's a hot one right there.
Yeah, so like structuring scenarios like that would be interesting, and it would push against the current incentive structures.
Yeah, no, that's really fun. There you go. Okay, we made a new scenario. We'll call it. Somebody said it's like big head mode and reverse controls in Smash Brothers. Sure, why not? Yeah, there you go. All right. Is there anything else we want to?
Chasing power. Chasing power is what you call it.
There you go. Anything else we want to predict with the new GHB? Have we covered all of our tinfoil hat predictions? I can't think of anything else we haven't touched on. Anything else? I mean, like I feel if there was anything super wild, they would have already said it in the preview seminar or gave us some hint to it. So it feels like we've probably hit.
Yeah, I feel like we've probably hit all of them.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I just got to thinking about what this will mean for endless spells. The mercenaries.
Okay.
Like, I'd have to go back and reread through all of the endless spells in Google or in
FEC.
FEC to see if anything in there is like more universally usable, such that you could port any of those into other allegiances.
Oh, sure, they can bring their spells with them. Yeah, they could.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They can bring their spells, but I'm wondering if there's any utility in any of these, like buried in any of these spells.
Not really.
Let us cheat.
Well, that's a random weird thought to end the show on, Tom. That's really great structure, but the answer is no, probably not. There you go. All right. So, anything else you want to say about the GHB, Tom? Since that's what we're currently talking about.
Well, we're talking about mercenaries, and if suddenly we were able to like mercenary bring people in all over the place,
Sure.
it creates these weird incentive structures. Let's just say thank heaven that you can't use invocations, the magmic invocations in non-Fire Slayer armies.
Sure.
Because then everybody could be porting in these rune walls and all this in the and all the crazy summoning if it was otherwise.
I too await the era of Magic the Gathering where everybody was just throwing walls up at each other, just walls staring at walls.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
I remember you well.
I'm not gonna lie. I seriously considered doing the wall build of like prismatic wall and the runic wall, because that's not a heavy investment. That's a wizard and 40 points.
No, what we're missing the wall of swords, the all critical wall of swords, the flying wall. So that when you'll see the walls go into full effect is when there's like a wall that has a terrain feature that says flying units cannot pass over this wall, or treat it as it's not there.
Yeah.
Because that'd be an easy rule to write. Like that's certainly within the design space of what exists right now.
Well, like we have other walls that let you ignore them if you're a certain type of creature, and so
exactly. This is the reverse.
Yeah.
Yep. Even flying creatures cannot pass over this wall. So once that happens, then you have your wall of swords, and then it's wall time.
Begun the walls war has.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all right.
Your witch hills don't mean anything if they can't get to me.
Just throwing up walls. There you go.
I mean, to be clear, runic wall, palisades, right? Sure. The prismatic palisades, and then the Infernoth, like the endless prayer guy, his base is the size of a Magmadroth base.
Sure.
So you could wall off 15 inches of just you can't pass through this space. Come on, witches, start running. And then you just let him go and resummon. Just keep moving the walls. You don't get to play over here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't wait for walls. It really wouldn't take them making that many more walls for that to happen.
Right. You only need one more, and suddenly we're playing a whole new ball game.
Mm-hmm. The wall wars begin.
You endless with the cloak of eternal whatever, where you get to get rid of one. You dispel the one in the middle and charge through the gap.
Absolutely.
There's so much possibilities here.
What you're saying is that you're going to build a wall and Nagash is going to pay for it. So there we go. All right. With that, we're going to end the show. Tom, good predictions. I have a feeling we'll know soon enough if any of us are right or wrong. I hope some of these things do come true, but we'll see. But for all of you out there, thank you very much for watching. Certainly appreciate it as always. And we'll see you next Wednesday.